Part 24. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahwa. Chapter 231. Whether in Nuan or Baihui, for most people, they are both dream-like girls. Lu Chang'an also finds them pleasing to the eye. Modern women are not ugly as long as they are healthy, develop normally, manage their figure and dress up a little. From the perspective of modern people's aesthetics, women's beauty is mostly improved as a whole. Measured from the aspects of physical health and mental temperament, excluding distorted habits, from the 17th century to the early 20th century, women's beauty presents a state of steep decline, whether it is physical health or mental temperament. This is an overall trend, and picking out individual examples of women like Yesijin and Sumei has no meaning in disproving it. Of course, the same was true for men in this period. The spirit of servility, selfishness, indifference, and numbness emanated from the inside out. After all, they had been suppressed and called slaves for 300 years, which almost wiped out the spirit of the nation. God poured a thick layer of pig dung and cow dung, and the stench was terrible. Fortunately, there are always a few backbones that were not broken and I stood up again, but some things are still poisoning me to this day, and it is difficult to wash away. Lu Chang'an restrained his divergent thoughts and returned his gaze to An Nuan. To be honest, all the female monkeys he had seen combined were not as beautiful as An Nuan's fingernails. Women are the most pleasing result of natural evolution. Now looking back on women in ancient times, the gap is really too big. Or maybe it's just a change in aesthetics. When humans still lived in trees or caves, there should have been recognized peerless beauties similar to An Nuan and Qinyanan. An Nuan and Baihui screamed to avoid it. It turned out that the pirate ship and the children were shooting at each other, which would inevitably affect the fish pond. This is an amusement park activity. The staff who play pirates on the pirate ship hold water guns. There are also many water guns in the shade of trees or rest areas in the tourist area. Visitors can pick up water guns and fight with the pirates. Most of the people who play this are children. Baihu! Baihui screamed again. The young man who yelled the loudest in the elevator area smiled and continued to spray Baihui with a water gun. And Nuan's coat next to him also got a little wet. Beauties, let's play wet, the young man chased her and started to come. Lu Chang'an walked over and grabbed the young man's water gun. What are you doing? The young man is a little over 7 meters tall, but he is still a little scared when facing Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an had no expression on his face and slapped him casually. How do you hit someone? The young man felt very humiliated and jumped away angrily, greeting the friends who had been cheering him on just now. Forget it, Baihui and An Nuan ran over and grabbed Lu Chang'an. This kind of prank on girls who want to get wet is very common. The key is that the clothes the two of them wear are not the kind that will reveal their beauty easily when they get wet. Material. Then forget it. Lu Chang'an was very talkative. Never mind. You said forget it? Don't you know whether to hit someone in the face or not? No fun today. Farewell to the countryside, you country bumpkin. Do you want to run away after beating someone? Lu Chang'an turned his head expressionlessly, grabbed the young man who jumped in front of him again and plunged him upside down into the big white bucket next to him. Of course, water guns need to be replenished, so the area where the toy water guns are placed has several buckets filled with water. Wow, help. The second one who rushed over was thrown into another bucket by Lu Chang'an. One Lu Chang'an came over and threw one, followed by the 4 young people. A total of 5 people were thrown into the bucket by Lu Chang'an. The 5 people struggled to climb out of the bucket, and there was a burst of laughter around them. Some tourists who were confused thought they were playing with water. The pirate ship came over. When the pirates saw the wet tourists, they thought they were having a good time. Naturally, they wanted to cooperate to ignite the high mood of the tourists, and quickly increase the firepower. The firepower was fully turned on, and the water cannons sprayed like putting out a fire. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nuan quickly pulled Lu Chang'an and ran away. Bai Hui hid in a catering car to greet Nuan and Lu Chang'an, and ordered fried sausages and stinky tofu, as well as 2 glasses of watermelon juice and a glass of orange juice. Orange juice? Unexpectedly, Lu Chang'an just ordered a glass of orange juice today, and Bai Hui had already remembered Lu Chang'an's preferences, and Nuan couldn't help but be wary. Let's hide here to eat and go out later. If they chase after us, they won't even think we're here. Bai Hui looked out the window and pulled the curtains up again. So it's safer to go out and play with the boys. If it were just us, we would definitely get wet from them, Nuan said with disgust and luck, and hugged Lu Chang'an's arm. Some people just take the opportunity to do obscene things in the name of jokes, games, etc. If you get angry and take it seriously, they will say innocently, "Look, everyone is playing with these water guns. Otherwise, why would you put it here? If you can't afford it, then don't come to the water gun area." Bai Hui said angrily, agreeing very much with Nuan's statement. Only then did she realize that she might have been there before. I really didn't pay attention to the issue that it would be safer to go out with boys. After all, there are 2 followers. It seems that I have been alone for a long time now, or with Miao Yingying. Fortunately, I met Lu Chang'an when I went out to play today. Sick society, sick human nature, twisted desires. But why are we running? Lu Chang'an said regretfully. I was having fun playing wet play with them. Just be happy, they seem to be going crazy. Bai Hui burst out laughing. The tickets are valuable. If there is a fight later, Lu Chang'an will definitely win, but what if things get too big and we can't have fun? And Nuan didn't want her date with Lu Chang'an to go to waste, even though she had been carrying a "there is nothing that can be done about the light bulb." That's right. Let's go bungee jumping later. It's rare that I'm not wearing a skirt today, Bai Hui said eagerly. I'm wearing a cardigan, tie it up, and the top won't hang upside down. But your t-shirt, when you jump off, it will probably be exposed, and maybe the tattooed breasts will burst. This is what happened last time I watched a bungee jumping video. And Nuan thought for a while and said worriedly for Bai Hui, while paying attention to whether her boyfriend's eyes lit up. No. You can jump first. When you come up, lend me your cardigan and tie it to your chest to make it tight. Bai Hui thought about it and had an idea. There was no other way. Girls with big breasts usually do. I encountered many similar problems, and my thinking in solving them was very quick. It's better to be a boy. He doesn't have as many worries and troubles as we do. He can play in the water if he wants, and bungee jump if he wants. I'm so envious, and Nuan said enviously. I envy you for meeting me. Lu Chang'an smiled. You should be envious of yourself for meeting me, and Nuan snorted. Eat something. Bai Hui stopped mentioning the dog food and greeted the snacks and drinks served with an expressionless expression. Bai Hui and Nuan ate sausages, while Lu Chang'an ate stinky tofu. The big sausage has flowers, so it's usually not easy to make people think of it, but Nuan still took a bite and secretly chuckled. Zhongqing sent a message asking for Bai Hui's location. Bai Hui sent her the location, opened the curtains, took some photos of the area and sent them to Zhongqing. Zhongqing had already come in, and quickly came over, ordered a cup of Coke, and took a long breath. Actually, it's not as exaggerated as Lu Chang'an said. The water quality in the water park looks quite clear, but it's hard to say with actual measurements. I feel that as a resort, in a city like Juncha, a water park with rich projects is very helpful for diverting traffic to the resort. Fortunately, Juncha, which can be called a furnace, does not have a matching super large one for the high temperature in summer. The water entertainment project is just our entry point. The cost problem is that it's too hot in summer and too cold in winter. Such a project requires a lot of investment, but the prosperous days are only a little more than 3 months. If you want to make enough money for a year in such a short period of time, You need to pay a ticket, it has to be extremely high, and the gap between Junche's consumption power and first-tier cities is still quite large, Lu Chang'an analyzed casually. We will arrange some of the projects in a very large glass house and transform it into an ice and snow kingdom in autumn and winter, including ice sculpture viewing, ski resorts, etc. Zhongqing has already received the project list, and these are not business secrets. When will it be built? I really want to play, and Nuan cheered enthusiastically. It will take at least 3 to 5 years, Bai Hui said not very optimistically. It's almost 3 years, and the fastest progress may be within 3 years. The preliminary construction has already started. The real construction and equipment debugging will be completed, and it will be opened in 2019. Zhongqing smiled. I will give you a super VIP experience then. Thank you, cousin. Bai Hui began to look forward to it again. After all, VIP experience tickets for large amusement parks are still very practical. For example, the most expensive VIP ticket for the only Disneyland in China costs 3,000 yuan per person. After all, for wealthy people, queuing for 2 or 3 hours for a popular item is a waste of time. By the way, Secretary Zhong, where's your beautiful young lady? Won't she come and experience these projects for herself? And Nuan asked curiously. A girl like Zhu Huntang will remember it after meeting her twice. Still new. She is a fairy. Zhongqing couldn't help but glance at Lu Chang'an. She will not come down to earth unless she knows that Lu Chang'an is here. Hearing such an answer, and Nuan was a little unhappy, but then she smiled and said, she cares about my boyfriend so much. Exactly. Lu Chang'an stepped on Zhongqing. To be precise, she wanted to see Lu Chang'an do magic, because Lu Chang'an is a master of magic. Zhongqing had to change her explanation. She originally wanted to say that, to be precise, the third wife was more interested in Lu Chang'an and wanted Lu Chang'an to be Zhu Huntang. Fiancé. This can be regarded as a reminder to An Nuan to watch Lu Chang'an carefully. Zhongqing really didn't mean to provoke him. She just knew that the third wife was unscrupulous in doing things, and she sympathized with An Nuan a little. Are you still a master of magic? Bai Hui and An Nuan looked at Lu Chang'an in surprise. Neither his former deskmate nor his former deskmate understood this, especially since one of his deskmates became his girlfriend. General magic is a trick. Another kind of magic is when the audience's intelligence is very low. You can perform it casually, and she will regard it as a wonderful magic trick. Lu Chang'an gave an example. For example, if you are 1 or 2 years old, if a child grabs a piece of candy in front of him, quickly clenches it and throws it away, and then opens his hand in front of him, he will think that you have lost the candy and will not be able to detect your obvious action of throwing the candy. Is Zhu Huntang so stupid? And Nuan was very surprised and willing to believe it. She's not that stupid, is she? Bai Hui was slightly skeptical but also surprised that she was willing to believe it. I told her that I knew Qin Shi Huang, and since then she has been looking for evidence of my immortality. It wasn't until my cousin told her, Qin Shi Huang, make money, that she started to waver. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Obviously I really know Qin Shi Huang, but only a fool will believe it. When a fool becomes smart, he will no longer believe it. The 3 girls all laughed. After all, it was quite satisfying for a guy like Zhu Huntang to be arranged like this. Especially Zhongqing's smile that made her branches tremble wildly. After taking a look at the ups and downs, An Nuan believed that maternal genes have a greater impact on physiology. Many people are interested in arranging topics about their bosses and leaders, but they also have a different mentality. If he had just met Lu Chang'an and Lu Chang'an teased Zhu Huntang like this, Zhongqing would definitely be angry, but now he will laugh happily, just like a woman. In fact, it can also be very dirty and good at telling dirty jokes, but it depends on who you are facing. After eating, they continued to play. Those young people were probably too embarrassed and left window of the world. They didn't meet them again on the road. and Nuan and Bai Hui went bungee jumping. Lu Chang'an disliked being too short and didn't go bungee jumping. When he enjoyed jumping down from the Bailong Center, the administrator gave him a thumbs up to express his admiration. Zhongqing didn't play because she was wearing a skirt and felt that she was older and wearing professional clothes, so she should be more reserved. But when it came time to play in the haunted house, she screamed the most and even pushed Bai Hui out of the way. Grabbed Lu Chang'an's arm and hugged her, and Nuan huddled in Lu Chang'an's arms, eyes rolling around like a little mouse, looking at the monsters that suddenly stuck out their heads, or crawled half of their bodies on the ground. After leaving the haunted house, several girls were embarrassed. Zhongqing was arranging his hair and clothes while apologizing to Lu Chang'an and Nuan. Seeing that he had taken advantage of many of his cousins, Bai Hui couldn't care less about Zhongqing's eardrums. Qing was shocked. And Nuan didn't care if others took advantage of Lu Chang'an. We were all girls. They didn't think about things when they screamed, so that was understandable. After playing until the afternoon, everyone ended their happy day and went home happily. Lu Chang'an bought groceries on the way home. As soon as he returned to the community, he met Zhou Shuling. Behind her was Zhou Dongdong, who was very happy because he decided not to go to elementary school because he failed to register. Thanks to the book friend and eunuch for sending the reward from the Blade Supporters Association, a new leader will be added, and there will be an outbreak tomorrow. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 232. Registration for Juncha public primary schools has already started. Originally, parents only needed to prepare the materials as required to register. However, there were still queues all night at the entrance of many primary schools. I pity the hearts of parents in the world. It's just that times have changed, and the way we deal with and respond to many things has also changed. However, the hearts and minds of the older generation have not kept up with the times. For example, Juncha's primary school registration now uses online pre-registration and on-site registration confirmation. The Education Department has repeatedly emphasized and confirmed that school-age children in the school district will be admitted. Class schedules are also randomly generated by computers. However, some parents still think that I queued up all night long. Then you must give me the best priority, otherwise you will prepare the whole family to make trouble. There are also some people with ulterior motives who spread information about the upper limit of quotas, saturation of first-grade students, contract signings with real estate developers, etc., causing emotional tension among registered parents. Zhou Shuling has already registered online. The registration for first-year primary school freshmen is divided into categories such as household with house, house without house, house without house, house without house and other types. Zhou Dongdong's household registration has always been here, and now he also buys it. After buying the house, the transfer procedures were completed, and the registration went smoothly. However, Zhou Shuling still felt unsettled, so she went to a private elementary school with a good reputation and a popular reputation to try to register. Of course, private primary school enrollment does not guarantee that everyone will be admitted. The primary school entrance exam is a must. Unsurprisingly, the child Zhou Dongdong was happily eliminated in the entrance exam. You are really free. Lu Chang'an carried the dishes and listened to Zhou Shuling's complaints about how difficult it was to go to elementary school. I can go to first grade again when I grow up, Zhou Dongdong said happily, carrying an empty school bag. Why don't you grow up and go back into my belly? I want to give birth to a new one. Zhou Shuling hated that the teacher in charge of the primary school entrance examination looked at her with sympathetic eyes. Naturally, she was proud and disdainful at the time, but she looked back. I will definitely beat Zhou Dongdong from now on. You don't have a husband anymore, how can you give birth? Zhou Dongdong asked curiously and with some relief. If you give birth to me again, will I still be so powerful? What's so great about you? Lu Chang'an couldn't tell at all. Eating 3 bowls in one meal is your greatest skill, right? Yes. That pig can eat as much as a bathtub in one meal. Pigs are much more powerful than you. Really? Zhou Dongdong's eyes widened in disbelief. Zhou Shuling sighed. Today, other children had talent shows, singing, dancing, crosstalk, painting, harmonica and so on. I asked her to perform and dance too, but she forgot about it when she stood on the stage and took it out of her pocket. Take out 2 dates and tell the teacher that she wants to perform a performance of eating 2 dates at the same time. After waiting for so long, I'm hungry. Zhou Dongdong reached out and took out the pockets on both sides. He had finished eating all the dates. When you are hungry, your mind can only think about things related to eating. Isn't it natural? This won't work. Lu Chang'an shook his head at Zhou Shuling. It's dangerous to eat 2 jujubes at the same time. Zhou Dongdong, next time you have to perform 2 Xiaolong Bao at the same time. I really like this kind of performance. Zhou Shuling angrily punched Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong. Back home, Zhou Shuling asked Lu Chang'an to stop the fire, took the vegetables bought by Lu Chang'an, and prepared to go to the kitchen. Of course Zhou Shuling doesn't really only cook crayfish, she just likes to eat crayfish, so what she cooks for midnight snacks is basically crayfish. When eating, Zhou Dongdong moved a basin to serve the rice. He wanted to prove himself, but Zhou Shuling scolded him, so he had to eat 3 bowls and felt that he was no longer powerful at all. Lu Chang'an saw packing boxes in the living room. Zhou Shuling said they were winter clothes and packed them first. Lu Chang'an received 50 yuan, and then helped Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong move their winter clothes upstairs. After looking at the almanac, he saw that tomorrow would be a good day, so he made an appointment to move tomorrow. Zhou Shuling really wanted to say that she couldn't do it without a man in her family. It was a blessing to meet Lu Chang'an, but when she saw that Lu Chang'an was no longer the young boy she first met, she couldn't say this. After all, they are all adults, so it was inevitable to say this. There are some ambiguous meanings, but if we all get along well, we still have to be careful not to be embarrassed, lest he avoids anything. Brother Chang'an, let's move upstairs, and you will move here, Zhou Dongdong asked with great anticipation. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and nodded. Then if you hear me jumping around the room from now on, come and play with me. I'll beat you up when I come up. I hid under the bed. Then you will be beaten by your mother. Why do you have to hit me? Yeah, so pitiful. Zhou Dongdong thought for a while, sniffed, and hummed twice before feeling miserable and crying. However, Zhou Dongdong was not really scared, because Brother Chang'an only talked, except patting his butt. I never really hit her like my mother, making her scream and scream. Zhou Shuling squeezed 3 cups of juice, and Zhou Dongdong immediately took the juice and sat on the small bench and drank it quietly. Give me 200 yuan, and I'll treat you to dinner and help you get Zhou Dongdong's study done. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Dongdong's concentrated drinking of juice and shook his head. Okay, Zhou Shuling was very surprised. Although she had always thought that those who could manipulate matters such as a primary school degree were extremely powerful people. Can Lu Chang'an, a high school student, do it for 200 yuan? Most people would find it incredible. If it were true, there would be many people willing to pay 20,000 or 200,000 yuan. But for a high school student, no one except Zhou Shuling would believe it for 200 yuan. Zhou Shuling immediately sent a red envelope to Lu Chang'an. She sat upright with her hands on her knees and watched Lu Chang'an receive the red envelope expectantly. Lu Chang'an called Qin Yinan. The call took a while to get through. Cousin Lu Chang'an's attitude was very correct. After all, he was asking for help. Zhou Dongdong is going to elementary school. Could you please find the best school near our community? The key is to say hello to the teacher. I hope it is the kind of teacher who is gentle and patient and won't treat students with bad grades badly. There was no sound on the other end of the phone. Lu Chang'an was confused when he heard the reply, "Okay." The voice was relatively low, and it was unclear whether it contained any emotion, but it was obviously a little different from the usual Qin Yinan. "Do you like Zhou Dongdong very much?" Qin Yinan still asked in a very low voice. "I think stupid children need more care, which is the meaning of social justice. She can also be educated well and cannot give up so early. I'm witty." Zhou Dongdong finished drinking the juice. When he heard the word stupid kid, he subconsciously retorted, but Zhou Shuling immediately covered her mouth and stopped her from disturbing Lu Chang'an's call. Nervously looking forward to making it happen. "Okay, please send me her name and the ID number on the household registration book." Lu Chang'an signaled to Zhou Shuling, who quickly took out the household registration book from the bag on the sofa. Lu Chang'an read the number to Qin Yinan. "Okay, wait for my good news." Qin Yinan was about to hang up. "I'll treat you to dinner and I'll cook." "Good." Lu Chang'an hung up the phone and his mood was slightly affected. People are always most susceptible to the influence of habits. They are used to Qin Yinan's tone and emotion when talking to him. Now her changes have affected Lu Chang'an. It seems that he still has some problems. It is easy to blend the feelings of Qin Yinan and Ye Sijin together in a daze, otherwise Lu Chang'an would not notice the attitudes of ordinary people. "What's going on?" Lu Chang'an put down his phone and drank juice. "Is this done?" Zhou Shuling picked up Zhou Dongdong, which was really hard. "No problem, she knows people from the education department. We found a nearby elementary school to make it easier for her to get to and from get out of class." Zhou Dongdong opened his mouth and looked at Lu Chang'an blankly. "I'm going to be sent to elementary school." Lu Chang'an continued to nod. How could this be? Obviously her registration failed. Her mother said she wanted to put her back in her belly, and she wanted to wait until she grew up to go to elementary school. She was already looking forward to sitting on a small bench under the sycamore tree and feeding the loaches when she grew up. How come this beautiful child suddenly changed? Having a baby is so hard. Lu Chang'an went downstairs after drinking the juice, packed up his things, and planned to move upstairs according to the situation after Zhou Shuling moved tomorrow. His belongings mainly include a few sets of clothes, some daily equipment, pots, spatulas, kitchen utensils, etc. The rest are the books accumulated over time. After cleaning up, it was already midnight. Lu Chang'an walked out of the room and looked around. He felt that both Mrs. Karnstein and the third wife seemed to have been quiet for a while. At least it felt like there was no surveillance arranged in the community. It seemed that the words he wrote on the telephone pole must have played a role. Maybe it was for other reasons, but Lu Chang'an wasn't very concerned. He went to the carriage to take a look as usual. The coffin seemed to have a calm and peaceful atmosphere at present, not as full of ghost stories as it was at first. If it was not given to the little hen, it would be fine. If it was given to the little hen, it would be fine too. He still eats and seems to be well nourished, and he is somewhat reserved like the master of the harem. Dan, something happened last night that convinced me of the magic of this coffin," Lu Chang'an exclaimed softly. "Have you heard of the story of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin?" Naturally, Shangguan Dandan had never heard of it. Life is the greatest miracle in the world. The vast universe and the boundless starry sky. Many people speculate that the Earth may be the only source of life. In other words, on June 11, 2010, outside the International Space Station, it was cold, and cold in the universe that coexists with darkness. The 9 behemoths are motionless, as if they have been there for eternity, making people feel the endless desolation and eternity, but they are actually 9 dragon corpses. No different from the dragons in myths and legends. Each dragon corpse is 100 meters long, with black iron ropes as thick as a bowl tied at the end, leading to the dark space behind the 9 dragon corpses, where a 20-year-old dragon corpse hangs quietly. Rice coffin. Lu Chang'an paused for a moment. Of course, I know that your coffin does not have 9 dragons to pull it, Although based on your status and the story of the emperor slaying the dragon in our traditional culture, there are 9 dragons to pull it for you. It cannot be said that the status of the coffin does not match, but the key point is that based on my experience, it is very regrettable that there are no dragons in myths and legends on this earth. Lu Chang'an gently touched the painting on the coffin. The dragon pattern on it had simple lines and exaggerated shapes, which was quite imposing. Okay, let's continue telling the story of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin. The giant bronze coffin is simple and unpretentious, with some vague ancient patterns on it, full of the vicissitudes of time, and I don't know how many years it has been floating in the universe. Lu Chang'an stopped after finishing the first chapter of the novel. Okay, let's talk about politics next. For you, politics is a must-learn subject. Karl Marx once said that philosophers just use different way to explain the world, and the problem is to change the world, so this is why Marx is the top philosopher, and other philosophers are probably a lower level. You tell the story of the coffin pulling in Kowloon. Shangwen's dull voice finally sounded in the carriage again after a month. Then you first tell me what this coffin is about. Don't fool me about the ritual of sealing and burying souls. It may have something to do with it, but it is definitely not something that can draw blood and vitality, or even make other people lose their flesh and blood. Corruption is the reason for reshaping life. Lu Chang'an did not expect that his sudden idea would really arouse Shang Guandandan's curiosity and desire to listen to stories. Little girls love to listen to stories. Shang Guandandan definitely knows a little more about coffins than Lu Chang'an, but it is impossible to know them all. The story of using a 9 dragon to pull the coffin will naturally arouse her thoughts. This is my baby. Your treasure? A coffin has become your treasure? Is it the kind of treasure that if I call you, do you dare to agree? By the way, I have never told you about Journey to the West. This coffin is the kind used by gods. Baby. Shang Guandandan stopped talking, and Lu Chang'an was not surprised, but a little regretful. Of course, he would not tell her the story of the 9 dragons pulling the coffin again. Lu Chang'an continued to talk about politics. If everyone could have their wishes come true, then maybe there would be no so-called politics in the world. People have too much interest in politics. There are so many different understandings, but no matter which understanding you prefer, you must admit that the birth of politics is in the process of people competing, dragging, and even fighting with others to put forward some words to explain to people why their choices and practices are legitimate while others are not. Politics can be a set of rhetoric about individual interests or collective interests. Political science was naturally not as interesting as the story of the Kowloon coffin puller. Shang Guandandan did not interrupt him again, nor did he ask him to continue talking when he stopped. Lu Chang'an himself was inspired by it. This coffin was naturally not the one from Kowloon, but maybe there were some similarities. So Lu Chang'an went to read novels. Reading some online novels before going to bed is a very comfortable thing. Reading a little every day is good for keeping your mind active and your body and mind happy. After leaving the stall the next day, Lu Chang'an, who had received 50 yuan in moving fees, put on a large vest and pants, and put a towel on his shoulders to help Zhou Shuling move. Zhou Dongdong carried her string of broken firecrackers tied with cotton thread, and put her toy chickens and other things in her school bag to help with the work. Lu Chang'an carried the bed first. Zhou Shuling wanted to help, but Lu Chang'an pushed her aside and stopped moving. She watched in stunned silence as Lu Chang'an carried such a big wooden bed as flexibly as he carried Zhou Dongdong's small bench. Men are so awesome. Many times, when women see men using their strength to do things that women can't do, they can't help but feel admiration. This is an extremely simple matter for Lu Chang'an, but when other neighbors pass by on the corridor, he still has to act more serious, holding a big bed and turning it around. Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong are amazed. You yelled and had no other reaction. If other normal neighbors saw him, they would inevitably be stunned. It would be fine if the strangers were stunned. The neighbors who looked up but looked down looked at him suspiciously, which was not low-key enough. Lu Chang'an was strong and fast, and he could finish the move in an hour. If Zhou Dongdong hadn't been carrying a small stool on his back from time to time, and the small stool was blocking the way on the stairs, it would have been faster. You guys clean up your house. If you have time, help me clean the downstairs. I will go to the stall and sell a few more bowls of noodles. Lu Chang'an wiped his head with a towel and said. Yes, your house was clean when you moved in, and it should be tidy when you leave, Zhou Shuling said matter-of-factly. I'll mop the floor for you. Don't want. I can work. Using your face or butt is more like it? Am I the kind of kid who rolls on the floor? Of course. How come I don't remember rolling on the ground? You don't remember anything that goes against you. Oh. Lu Chang'an went to sell rice noodles. Business is still good, and some people complained that the stall was open so late today. Fortunately, I looked back and ate this bowl of noodles in the morning, and I felt that the day was complete. Lu Chang'an was very satisfied. This is the meaning of good food. At noon, Lu Chang'an saw Qin Yan'an walking towards him. Her style today is completely different. She is no longer wearing a cheongsam, nor is she as elegant as a lilac-sweet girl in a small town. Instead, she is wearing a fluffy A-line skirt, with extremely slender legs and 7-centimeter high heels. Her long hair was spread loosely, with light, distant bangs on her smooth forehead. Are you going to become an internet celebrity and open a Dobayo store? Lu Chang'an glanced at Qin Yan'an, who was walking over holding an umbrella, and asked with a little surprise, use your Bentley as the background and take a few product pictures. Perfect. Zhou Dongdong's degree is settled, so after I asked Uncle Ma to say hello, I asked my father's secretary to call the principal. I know you are afraid that Zhou Dongdong's academic performance is too poor and he will be discriminated against in school, but it is inevitable for public schools to focus on performance, so teachers can only encourage and educate more. Qin Yan'an came over, scanned the code. Here comes a bowl of rice noodles, less oil soup. Okay. How can you be so calm? Qin Yan'an paid the money and looked at Lu Chang'an seriously as if nothing really happened that night. It was originally going to be 3 in 1, but it is missing 1,000 words because I got up too late today. Tomorrow is the Chinese Valentine's Day, and a super big chapter of Xiahua will be given back to you all. I need to feed Zhou Dongdong to show my love. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 233. That night was the night before yesterday, but for women, the use of words like that night is unconscious, because women are emotional, and emotionality means hesitation, edge, and ambiguity, rather than specific words used to refer to it. Of course it is more in line with their needs and feelings. Lu Chang'an thought for a while. He was talking about Kowloon coffin pulling and political science last night. It was at Qin Yan'an's house the night before yesterday, and that night was the night before yesterday. What happened the night before yesterday, in Lu Chang'an's opinion, was not as peaceful as Qin Yan'an said. But his brain always habitually evacuates some overly intense emotions. After all, for a person who has lived for so many years, his brain must be in a saturated state. If something is put in, something must be sent out. Lu Chang'an dissipated some of the pride and satisfaction of selling fans today, and regained the state he was in that night. So Lu Chang'an glanced at Qin Yan'an uneasily and complied with her request. I really can't imagine. Qin Yan'an looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. She already felt that she knew him as well as she wanted. But what he did still left her speechless. How could there be such a person? Before Qin Yan'an saw the recovered video, he had imagined countless scenarios and all sorts of messy situations. I didn't expect him to do this. Sorry. Lu Chang'an was very regretful. She was able to get the video back. Sure enough, it is not easy to keep up with the times. In the age of the explosion of knowledge, the skills she has mastered are growing faster than the skills she has mastered. It is too insignificant, too trivial. You actually sat next to my bed and told me the historical events from 1945 to 2017 with great emotion and passion all night. Qin Yinan pointed to the bowl of rice noodles brought over by Lu Chang'an with an excited expression. Are you crazy? Are you thinking about all the rice flour in your head? Lu Chang'an put down a bowl of rice noodles and turned around to look at the dazzling sun. Of course, Qin Yinan didn't really come to eat his bowl of rice noodles. The video has not been completely restored. In a large section that has been found now, Lu Chang'an is talking about history there, starting from the victory of the anti-Japanese war, Japan's surrender, to the beginning of the Liberation War. 3 major battles, the liberation of Nanjing, the peaceful liberation of Bijie, the first political consultative conference, the founding ceremony of the People's Republic of China. To Qin Yinan's ears, what Lu Chang'an said was much better than what some experts and professors on the forum said. The key was the allusions to characters, those not recorded in history books, some not spread, those that great-grandfather told Qin Yinan in private, and what's more, his grasp of some characters' personalities, tone of voice and even the expression of wishes in dialect are all very exciting, making people feel as if they are immersed in the scene. But is this the point? The point is, when he was talking about this, Qin Yinan had already stripped herself naked. Therefore, Lu Chang'an is really crazy. Qin Yinan judged her state at that time by the cheongsam on the ground and the clothes on the bed. Lu Chang'an had been standing in front of her. The camera did not directly capture her, but judging from her appearance at that time, it was definitely not Lu Chang'an who had put herself in that way. It seemed that he was talking to himself in a sleepwalking state. When you were sleepwalking, you looked a lot like Yesijin. Lu Chang'an turned around and narrowed his eyes as if he was uncomfortable with staring at the sun for a long time. In my opinion, it was Yesijin who traveled through time and space. Got the chance to interact with the modern world. I became Yesijin. Qin Yinan couldn't confirm everything based on the video, so he came to Lu Chang'an again. It's not important. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. It does not matter. Qin Yinan discovered that Lu Chang'an really didn't pay much attention to her cousin. She was so ruthless and unjust. You are still you, but Yesijin will no longer occupy your sleepwalking. Just like in many stories, ghosts are born because of obsession and die because of the dissipation of obsession. You didn't sleepwalk again last night, right? Lu Chang'an was very worried. Ask questions with certainty. Qin Yinan nodded. If he hadn't discovered Lu Chang'an's weirdness in the video, Qin Yinan would have been satisfied. What I feel is Yesijin's obsession. Think about it, a revolutionary who sacrificed her life in that era. What was her obsession? Lu Chang'an paused for a moment. They want to take a look at the people they died for. What a country where all blood is shed is like. So. Yes, I want to tell her what the country she poured out with her life looks like, and how the ideals in her heart have been realized. In some places, the realization is better than she imagined, and in some places, it will be better than she imagined. It makes her heartbroken and angry. Some beauty and happiness will make her willing. Some sins will make her angry. Lu Chang'an had a smile on his face. I told her that there is still a lot of darkness in the world, and there are many people like her, because he saw the darkness, so he chose to burn himself desperately to create a dazzling or insignificant light. Qin Yinan stared at Lu Chang'an blankly, his eyes moist. Now, her obsession has finally dissipated, and she will no longer bother you. Lu Chang'an patted Qin Yinan on the shoulder. Let's get some fans. If I were Yesijin, would I be willing to accept it? Will the obsession dissipate? Qin Yinan sighed softly. Had her obsession finally dissipated? Does Lu Chang'an know that Yesijin's obsession is to meet someone again? Qin Yinan could not forget what he saw after touching the coffin and the emotions he was affected by. As long as her soul is not expelled and her body is not taken over, Qin Yinan is willing to help Yesijin fulfill her last wish. However, Qin Yinan now doesn't even know who Yesijin's last wish was and who she still wanted to see again. Qin Yinan was in a trance while tasting the spicy red chicken noodle soup. When the spiciness was hard to ignore, she stuck out her tongue, took a bottle of mineral water from Lu Chang'an and drank it. Lu Chang'an was still selling fans, with a small vendor-like enthusiasm in his smile. The sun fell on his hair, like long grass blown down by the wind, and the strands were naturally attached. Qin Yinan discovered that Lu Chang'an's biggest characteristic was clean and fresh from the inside out. This is probably the reason why he is so hard to dislike no matter what he does. It is unbelievable to think about it. If he was at his own home that night, if he had been another man, I'm afraid he would have been. We saw off the guests and then spent the whole night in silence. Although he looked very clean, Qin Yinan still felt that he looked a bit like the pork guy in Stephen Chow's Domestic Lingling Paint. It's a bit like it. If he brings up a kitchen knife and a greasy bib, Qin Yinan drinks the water, the corners of his mouth curl up slightly, and he finds that he has calmed down a lot. If he really doesn't sleepwalk anymore, it feels good to feel at ease. At noon, when the business slowed down, Lu Chang'an closed the stall. Let's go, buy some snacks to pad your stomach first, and then buy groceries. Qin Yinan followed Lu Chang'an and looked at his back. The young man's spine was straight, without the laziness caused by the decadent nightlife of many young people nowadays. Especially the natural and soft walking arc of the waist and hip lines, it was obvious that what emerges is a body with full kidney essence and strong blood. It doesn't seem to be an easy thing to meet a young man during the summer vacation who goes to bed early and gets up early, and doesn't know how to play with his mobile phone after 12 o'clock. Lu Chang'an's life seems very peaceful, but it gives people the feeling of a hermit. It always feels like he is not growing, surviving, or experiencing the world, but more like counting the time and looking for the various waves splashing in the time. Does my back make you think of my back? Lu Chang'an asked with a smile without looking back. He could feel Qin Yinan's gaze on his back. What? Qin Yinan didn't react. If it was in Nuan, she would have jumped up and hugged his neck, and hit him coquettishly and said that he was taking advantage of him again. The first back view is a real back view, and the second back view is Zhu Ziking's article. You got 0 points for reading comprehension. You are the only one in Shonan province who dares to take advantage of me with jokes like back view. I didn't take advantage of you. You haven't taken advantage of me yet. Qin Yinan's beautiful cheeks seemed to be coated with a layer of ripe peach juice. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Is this your reaction? Qin Yinan blurted out originally. After all, it is better not to mention embarrassing and shy things, but now that he has said it, it is inevitable that he will be a little concerned about the other party's reaction. Dull. Nodding casually to say hello. It seemed that she was not Qin Yinan, but just a little ass like Zhou Dongdong, and she had no temptation for him. Oh, I didn't mean it. Lu Chang'an added a response to her. If she needs it, just give it to her. It's easy to do, so why not do it? You. Look at that dog. Qin Yinan followed the direction he pointed and could barely distinguish it from a distance. It was Zhongqing holding a black dog. There was no doubt that he was the new high-ranking Templar. What happened to that dog? I heard from Zhongqing that you killed Zhu Huntang's dog and took it back to eat. That's not the point. You still want to eat her dog. I mean, look, the dog doesn't have any clothes on. Can you say that I took advantage of it? Lu Chang'an pointed at himself. In my eyes, all living beings are equal, and women are just ordinary animals. Whether you are wearing clothes or not, it makes no difference. You called me a bitch. Qin Yinan was really angry. I'm just giving an example, meaning there is no difference between you and a dog. Lu Chang'an. Qin Yinan picked up the bag in his hand and threw it. I'm just trying to reason with you. I'll go to Zonking's place and get a dog to bite you to death. It's so annoying, why do women hate being reasonable so much? Lu Chang'an was obviously just giving an example. What happened to the dog? Dog meat is so delicious, is there any need to be so excited? Lu Chang'an ran away because he didn't know how to deal with women. Qin Yinan was wearing high heels that were about as long as her middle finger, so she couldn't catch up. Besides, she didn't really like chasing and running, so she had to stop in front of Zhongqing, who had been looking at her and Lu Chang'an. Zhongqing smiled. How come Zhu Huntang has never walked the dog by herself? What's the point of raising a dog and not walking it? Qin Yinan spoke with some embarrassment. After all, her image has always been steady and elegant. Chasing and hitting people on the street feels like somewhat damaging to the image. She said that if she has to do everything, then what are we getting paid for? Zhongqing touched the head of the new high-ranking Templar and said. Did you see where Lu Chang'an ran? He said hello to me and went to the supermarket. Zhongqing pointed in the direction of the supermarket entrance. Okay, thanks. Qin Yinan walked over and saw Lu Chang'an at the meat counter of the supermarket. The quality of the meat here is better than that of affordable products on the market, and the price is doubled, which is commonly known as IQ tax. In fact, most of the time, it is not an IQ tax, but a market tax. The pursuit of perfection in a market economy profit, you get what you pay for, you get what you pay for, it's normal. Lu Chang'an picked, and said with great satisfaction, look, there is Luxi beef here. He seemed to have put what happened just now into the past tense, and looked as if nothing had happened, which made Qin Yinan embarrassed to continue to challenge him. I found that you are really strong inside. Qin Yinan took a shallow breath and said calmly. To study for Zhou Dongdong's degree, I charged Zhou Shuling 200 yuan, which was enough to buy some beef and chicken. Let's eat beef and chicken today, right? Lu Chang'an asked in a questioning tone while pointing to the beef on the counter. Let people weigh it. You don't care about her opinion at all, right? Qin Yinan still nodded and looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. So you charged her 200 yuan just to treat me to dinner? Lu Chang'an nodded. Why are you so embarrassed to ask someone for 200 yuan? Qin Yinan was a little dumbfounded. I'm doing her a favor by treating you to dinner, but of course you can't ask me to pay you back. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. If I had known, I should have given you 200 yuan the night before yesterday. After all, I was asking for your help. Didn't I take advantage of you? Forget it. Now you admit to taking advantage of me. Qin Yinan's emotions fluctuated. How could this person be so able to tease others? I'm just talking casually. Lu Chang'an picked a few more chicken thighs and went to check out. Qin Yinan had no choice but to follow him again and glared angrily at Lu Chang'an, who turned on his mobile phone to pay. He accidentally caught a glimpse of an angry little daughter-in-law in the mirror beside her. Who was she? Qin Yinan's cheeks were slightly red, and she was shocked by her own image. How could she look like this? She immediately narrowed her eyebrows, straightened her hair and clothes, raised the corners of her mouth slightly with a smile, and turned into a reserved older cousin. Thanks to the infrastructure construction and the progress of the logistics industry, Lu Chang'an has not eaten Luxi beef for a long time. It was not easy to eat fresh beef in the past. Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan returned to the community and saw Zhou Dongdong sitting under the sycamore tree again and feeding the loaches. Zhou Dongdong, Qin Yinan greeted Zhou Dongdong. Sister, come and feed the loaches with me, Zhou Dongdong invited Qin Yinan enthusiastically as he watched Qin Yinan rummaging through her handbag. I don't feed the loaches. Where is your mother? Qin Yinan turned over a piece of chocolate and handed it to Zhou Dongdong. It felt like this child had been sitting under the sycamore tree all day long. Every time he came to see her, he basically sat here. My mother cleaned the house. She said she was exhausted. She asked me to find something to eat and then went to bed. Zhou Dongdong didn't eat the chocolate immediately. He looked at it and put it in his pocket. Thank you, sister. Why don't you eat chocolate? My mother will be hungry when she wakes up, so I give her chocolates to eat. Qin Yinan hugged Zhou Dongdong distressedly. Of course she also knew that Zhou Shuling was a single mother. It was not easy for these ruthless and unjust men, bastards who abandoned their wives and daughters. How can you find something to eat? You are not a small animal in the forest. Just check for mushrooms, fruits, nuts and the like. Mushrooms, fruits and nuts are all delicious. Zhou Dongdong regretted that he was not a small animal living in the forest. What her mother meant was to let her come to my place to have some food. Lu Chang'an's understanding was more accurate. He received Zhou Shuling's message. Qin Yinan felt maternal for a moment and gently stroked Zhou Dongdong's too high-raised hair. Lu Chang'an went to cook by himself. A very famous dish in the Great Hall of the People is pot-braised beef, which uses selected Luxi yellow beef. The cattle there are large in size, well-muscled, and the meat is tender and colorful. It has a good reputation as a layer of meat and is very suitable for stewing. Lu Chang'an trimmed the beef. Generally speaking, when making beef at home, he uses 3 parts of wine and 2 parts of water to simmer until tender, and then adds soy sauce to reduce the juice. This method is very delicious. The best way to eat beef is alone. When cooking, you don't need to put any radish and potato vermicelli, but it's not easy to buy good beef now, and it will be bland and tasteless if you don't match it with something. What Lu Chang'an did today was mainly to cater to the taste of northerners like Qin Yinan. After dicing the beef, bring it to a boil over high heat and simmer over low heat until crispy. Then put the stewed beef, processed potatoes and carrots into the stew pot. Stew it inside, then pour some wine and simmer it for a while. In fact, the 3-juice stew pot that is very popular in the north and south of the Yangtze River has similar methods and principles. Just adjust the taste according to different places. Lu Chang'an prepared the stewed beef and chicken floss in a pot and asked Zhou Dongdong to wash his hands before eating. Qin Yinan looked very maternal and actually accompanied Zhou Dongdong to feed the loaches. These loaches are the fattest ones Lu Chang'an has ever seen. You can consider buying a new batch of loaches to replace them. This batch can be eaten. Where are the chicken legs? Zhou Dongdong washed her hands and looked around the table for chicken legs with wide eyes. She clearly saw that there were many chicken drumsticks in the vegetables bought by Brother Chang'an. When Zhou Dongdong was feeding the loaches, he was already imagining himself holding a chicken leg in one hand. Reality always crushes dreams so cruelly. This is it. It's made into chicken floss. Qin Yinan explained to Zhou Dongdong how to make chicken floss. This chicken floss is made from chicken leg meat. Use the chicken leg to remove the bones and skin and chop it into pieces. Mix the ingredients well, fry until brown, then add beiwa wine, soy sauce, chicken oil, bamboo shoots and mushrooms, and then add chicken leg bones and chicken skin in a steamer to steam them thoroughly. It's delicious. Lu Chang'an nodded. Although it was also a home-cooked meal, Lu Chang'an's method was slightly different, but Qin Yinan had proved that even if she did not rely on her family background to become a beautiful chef and run a high-end restaurant as an internet celebrity, she would still be able to succeed in the catering industry. Once you gain a reputation and run it well, it's probably not difficult to open a Michelin star restaurant. Chicken legs are meant to be gnawed on. Zhou Dongdong couldn't understand what Qin Yinan said. There are still chicken skins and bones, you can chew on them. Lu Chang'an took out the chicken legs with only the skin and bones left. Zhou Dongdong thought hard for a while, picked up a small spoon, and began to fill the remaining skin and bones of the chicken legs with chicken floss. Generally speaking, chicken legs, the raw material for making chicken floss, will remain intact after the meat is removed. They are steamed just to season the chicken floss. The chicken legs and chicken skin are discarded when eating. Lu Chang'an watched Zhou Dongdong's operation, thought for a moment, and then imitated Zhou Dongdong's example and refilled a chicken drumstick. The chicken skin was dipped in some soup, and when he took a bite, it added a crispy and smooth texture. It's not bad to eat like this, if you can eat chicken skin. Lu Chang'an nodded approvingly and said to Qin Yinan, some people don't eat chicken skin. Qin Yinan also tried it and praised with a smile, Zhou Dongdong, you are really a genius. Zhou Dongdong turned a deaf ear. After she made 2 chicken drumsticks, she ate them with 1 in each hand. This is how chicken drumsticks should be eaten. I thought about it. When most chicken legs are made, the meat is a bit dead or chewy when eaten. It is not smooth and tender enough. But our way of eating completely avoids this taste and retains the taste that many people like to eat. Chicken skin, the oil is removed from the chicken skin during the steaming process, and it will not be too greasy. This method can be promoted. Lu Chang'an nodded, when my restaurant opens, this chicken drumstick will be included in the meal. You want to open a restaurant? Qin Yinan was a little surprised. Aren't you going to college next semester? Qin Yinan's work at Hunan University was arranged by his great-grandfather's people. Partnership, I provide the money and the menu, and Zhou Dongdong's mother also holds a share. Lu Chang'an nodded. Then are you still in college? Of course I will study. I haven't studied much in the past 10 years. I need to study hard in college to learn the knowledge I have missed over the years, Lu Chang'an said with deep feeling. In an era like this, doing nothing for more than 10 years is like returning to primitive society, not that much, but that's what it means. Since he was still going to college, Qin Yinan didn't care whether he opened a restaurant or not, but the relationship between him and Zhou Shuling's mother and daughter seemed to be really good. Qin Yinan couldn't help but look at Zhou Dongdong's face. It's too round to be seen. And this idea of mine is too ridiculous. Let's give this chicken drumstick a name. Let's call it Dongdong Drumstick. What? It sounds so unpleasant. You see, Dongdong sounds like the sound of a drum. This chicken leg looks like a drum pestle held in the hand to beat the drum, so it is called Dongdong leg. It happens to be another way of eating invented by Zhou Dongdong. No, it sounds like Zhou Dongdong's legs. Do you think it's appropriate? That's right. Lu Chang'an did not insist and followed the advice. You can call it Zhou Dongdong brand big chicken drumstick, that'll be fine. You have no level at all. It's easy to understand. Do you have to look for the name in the book of songs and chusai to sell a chicken drumstick? Okay, that's it. Zhou Dongdong is seriously eating chicken drumsticks within the barrier. As for whether you want to call him Dongdong Drumstick or Zhou Dongdong brand big chicken drumstick, what does it have to do with me, Zhou Dongdong? Ouch, 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 ouch. Translation: thank you for always supporting the stupid Zhou Dongdong as the leader of the alliance. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 234. This is not the first time Qin Yinan has tasted Lu Chang'an's cooking. Although they are all home-cooked dishes, he is not as particular about the ingredients as Qin Yinan. He only uses vegetables bought in the supermarket and does not care about the presentation and color matching, but the taste still makes Qin Yinan full of praise. Zhou Dongdong's shape is not without reason. After Qin Yinan came to Junxia, she felt that she had indeed gained some weight, and it seemed that she needed to exercise more. After all, once a person passes 25, if he didn't have stomach problems and parasites, he would have to rely on the body's own metabolism to maintain his body shape. Needing exercise is really a bit rare. Speaking of the body, Qin Yinan knew that it was probably the mysterious coffin that had caused radiation-like mutations to him. Lu Chang'an also often comes into contact with this coffin. I wonder if he has any mutations. Or maybe Zhou Dongdong, a child who is so good at eating, is also because of mutation? Qin Yinan didn't dare to tell Lu Chang'an about this matter. It was more terrifying than sleepwalking. She didn't want to be regarded as a monster, nor did she want to be studied. After dinner, Qin Yinan took a taxi back. Because the canned beef and chicken floss were filled with wine, even if she didn't feel anything, it might not be the case when she was investigated for drunk driving. She was not the kind of person who would shout "my dad" when being investigated. It's Chin XXS fool. Chin Yinan's car was originally parked outside the community, and she asked Lu Chang'an to help her drive the car to the community and park it. There was a bar street nearby, and there were many young people hanging out after the nightlife. It was not uncommon for luxury cars to be pulled over by bored people. Zhou Dongdong still touched his belly and sat under the sycamore tree, squinting his eyes and opening his mouth slightly, thinking happily about the appearance of his child. Lu Chang'an remembered that the pigs looked like this when they were full. So Lu Chang'an went to the mahjong parlor and played 2 mahjong games, sharpening his knife and preparing to win back the 30 yuan he lost to old man Jian. Today's luck was average, and there was a strange face in the mahjong parlor who always liked to teach others how to play cards. Lu Chang'an was not irritable or angry. He won 10 yuan and left the game. Just then Bai Hui called. Although playing mahjong was an indispensable and important event in life, he and Bai Hui were already familiar, so Lu Chang'an answered the phone with dignity at this moment. Lu Chang'an, I. You were kidnapped. What? Bai Hui was stunned for a moment and stopped stuttering. I thought you got rich, got kidnapped, and called for help. Straighten your tongue before you speak. I'm really rich, my cousin, I sent a message to you. Bai Hui was speechless, and Lu Chang'an's cell phone message soon rang. I'm at Starbucks in Bailong Center, come here. Lu Chang'an thought for a moment and concluded that the game was over anyway. He looked around at other people's cards and found nothing interesting, so he left the mahjong parlor and walked outside the community. Lu Chang'an came to Starbucks, looked left and right, and then saw Bai Fen looking around in the corner. Bai Hui waved, looking like she was overjoyed, wanting to say it out but expecting others to react. I ordered you a cup of tea, Bai Hui said happily. It's just because I'm often talked to, so I ordered an extra cup of tea to show that I'm waiting for someone. Lu Chang'an drank tea and didn't care why she ordered an extra cup of tea. I really got rich. Bai Hui lowered his voice, then danced and looked at Lu Chang'an's expression. Lu Chang'an nodded and drank tea. Bai Hui thought Lu Chang'an didn't believe it, so she held her breath and pressed her chest to calm down for a while, then she approached the table again, put her chest on the table, and said in a low voice, my cousin helped me sell the gold coins. Guess what? How much did it sell for? No guess. Lu Chang'an was not interested and drank tea. Even though Bai Hui was in a good mood, she still felt out of breath, but she recovered quickly. She just felt that she was really out of her mind. Except for her cousin who knew about such important good news earlier than she didn't know it. He didn't think about telling Miao Yingying, but found Lu Chang'an first. That Augustine gold coin was sold for 1.5 million, Bai Hui said this number and felt a rain of RMB falling in front of his eyes, and he was bathed in the sacred, beautiful, and representative of the highest truth in the world. In the rain. Congratulations. Lu Chang'an continued to drink tea. It's RMB. Not Zimbabwean currency. Bai Hui excitedly grabbed Lu Chang'an's hand holding the teacup. Lu Chang'an opened Bai Hui's fingers one by one. The little girl was not tall, but her fingers were quite long. My cousin said that if you sell it earlier, you can get more money, but you can only sell it quickly, and it will probably depreciate. When this kind of gold coin first appeared, a single coin sold for 10 million, the high price of US dollars, but later many of these gold coins appeared. Including the ones in the water park this time, the total has reached 100, so this price is speculated by some people, and some people are betting, thinking that it is impossible to be unlimited. The amount appears, and if it remains around 100 pieces, the price may rise in the later period. This news is also hype. I see, these gold coins were thrown out by the little blonde girl. Just ask her how many there are. Wouldn't you know? If she doesn't tell, then it means that this kind of collectible coins is being speculated. Maybe it's her, Lu Chang'an analyzed casually, even though he knew that he was just talking nonsense. Bai Hui couldn't speculate in coins anyway, and it wasn't investment advice for her. It doesn't matter, I have so much money anyway. Bai Hui carefully held down her bag and put it close to Lu Chang'an's ear. I took it. Lu Chang'an felt the heat in her mouth with his ears, and reached out to hold her face and push it away. Even if you move your mouth and say lip language, I can still understand. Bai Hui didn't care, she really just moved her mouth. After all, this was a very important thing that required extreme vigilance. You're out of your mind. Why do you want to take 200,000 cash with you when you have nothing to do? Lu Chang'an shook his head. It's heavy and inconvenient. Bai Hui anxiously grabbed Lu Chang'an again, and quickly looked left and right nervously, wary of whether there were any greedy eyes watching this little rich woman of hers. It doesn't matter. When you drink coffee at Starbucks, you hear that some people have started a business and raised hundreds of millions of venture capital, and some people control funds worth billions. Aren't they all chatting and laughing, just normal? Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously. This is cash, Bai Hui said through lip language. How can I let others rob you? Lu Chang'an dismissed it and drank tea. Only then did Bai Hui think that he was nervous, but he didn't seem to be really scared or uneasy. Lu Chang'an was indeed a boy who could give people a sense of security. Just like in Window of the World, no matter he was a wretched young man, or the ghosts in the haunted house, he is protecting the girls safely. So Bai Hui spoke up, I gave some money to my family, but my cousin only received my 8,888 red envelope as the lottery. But I think everyone has a share, yuan and nuan, each, 10,000. After saying this, Bai Hui breathed a sigh of relief and suppressed the redness in his cheeks. After all, it would take a long time to hold back his determination to give away so much money. After saying this, his heart was bleeding. But you still have to give what is due. After all, it was Lu Chang'an and An Nuan who rescued him at that time. Otherwise, the gold coins might have been snatched away by others before he had time to climb out. If she keeps it secret and spends money secretly in the future, An Nuan and Lu Chang'an will find out that she suddenly became a rich little woman. They will definitely want to know what they think of her then. An Nuan didn't care, but Bai Hui felt very uncomfortable when he thought about Lu Chang'an looking at him with disdain or contempt. Compared with the pain of giving away the money, it seems that such a scene would make me feel more distressed. No, Lu Chang'an pointed to the teacup, just treat me to tea. As for An Nuan, I can't agree for her. You can talk to her yourself, but I think she probably won't want it. Ah! How is this okay? Bai Hui looked at the 30 yuan cup of fruit tea. Is this okay? He doesn't want even 100,000. Lu Chang'an didn't like to be long-winded, so he waved his hands and prepared to go home. This matter was even more boring. He might as well go home and play one more round of mahjong. Maybe now his luck would be better, and he would kill those old men and old ladies and make them cry. Thanks to the eternal user Stupid Joe Dong Dong for his generous reward and becoming the ally of this book. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 235. Playing mahjong is a kind of fun, and trying your luck is a kind of fun. Many times when planning to play mahjong, it is endless fun to grab a good hand. There is no expression on the face, and the heart is happy and slightly nervous. Looking forward to how many times he will get it if he messes up, he sighs or scratches his wrist and wonders why this card is so unsatisfactory. If you are fooling, you will naturally raise your eyebrows and say I have been waiting for you for a long time in a slightly proud tone. If you are not fooling, just show your cards and say, this dog has 13 cards. It just won't give me a single chicken. What's the matter? Eggs are used. Lu Chang'an thought about going back and picking up a table of mahjong that everyone was planning to play. He stopped playing mahjong. Just as he was about to leave, Bai Hui grabbed his arm. Lu Chang'an was a little confused. Couldn't they be more reserved? You always pull people's arms into your arms. Don't you know how big your breasts are? They are all facing this god of death. Lu Chang'an held Bai Hui's shoulders as usual and pulled her hand out. It seemed that Bai Hui was not bragging when she said there were always people trying to talk to her. Just such an action could attract some envious, jealous, and incomprehensible looks. Lu Chang'an didn't care about other people's eyes, pointed to the door, took the cup and filled it with water, and walked out with Bai Hui while drinking tea. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an revealed his label as a gentleman from the county, speaking a local dialect. You really don't want it? The last time you acted bravely, it was 200,000 yuan, so you want it too. After saying this, Bai Hui became a little envious of Lu Chang'an's wealth. There are always people who want to give him money. Saving one life is better than building a 7-level pagoda. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and said, I saved Zhao Wuqiang's life, saved a family, and kept a young man from dying, so that he can continue to fight against the current and scold Fang in the future. Chu, reshape the future. That 200,000 yuan is deserved, and the education fund of the high school affiliated to Hunan University was originally established by my father. Although it is higher than the general reward amount, I can accept and understand it. Ah, your father. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an in surprise. Her attention was naturally diverted. She didn't know the information about Lu Chang'an's father until 3 years in high school. He had always been an orphan and had no other information. What's your expression? Is it weird that I have a father? Can't I be born from my parents and evolve from a single cell? Lu Chang'an's pride was stimulated. No, no, that's not what I meant, Bai Hui explained with a red face. I just realized, no, I meant that anyway, that's not what I meant. Your father is so powerful, and the education fund sounds much better. Money. He is an expert with great academic achievements. He is a philanthropist who takes social responsibility, but he is not a very good father. Lu Chang'an laughed again. Maybe in the future when you get to Hunan University, you can also. I can hear some of his gossips and scandals. Let me just say, it turns out that there is some family background. You are so knowledgeable and talented, Bai Hui said with a slight exaggeration. In fact, she always felt that Lu Chang'an had a messy mind, but she wanted to use another word to describe it, so as not to make him angry again. Bai Hui found that she actually cared about whether he was angry or not, probably because he was always a gentle person, but being angry made people feel more intense. Well, are you okay? No, I have so much money in my bag. If you leave me here alone, I don't dare to touch it. Bai Hui became nervous again. Then how did you get here? You took the money out of the bank, right? The bank can't give it to you even if it's 200,000 yuan. I walked along by feeling the wall. Then you touch the wall and walk back. No, Bai Hui pulled Lu Chang'an's sleeve and looked at him pitifully. Classmates, please give me some of your patience with an yuan. Bai Hui was really scared and had no choice but to compromise. After talking about this, Lu Chang'an nodded. Okay, but I'm not giving you my patience with an yuan, but for the sake of my classmates and because your stupidity is so touching. Bai Hui showed a smile and jumped. Seeing the little dwarf jumping, Lu Chang'an wanted to reach out and hold him down, but he forgot about it. After all, Bai Hui was an adult girl with strong self-esteem, and she was not an innocent and lively little animal like Zhou Dongdong. I have 2 big wishes in this life. Oh. My first wish is that when I have money, I will go to the bank to withdraw a large amount of money and put it in my bag, and let others look at me with envy to withdraw money, because I used to go to the bank and saw someone withdrawing a large amount of money. I'm envious of having a lot of money. My second wish is to buy luxury goods with a big bag of money on my back. When I check out, I will unzip the zipper, reveal my money, and take it out one by one. Bai Fen gently stroked her bag and said with satisfaction. Madness. I'll call An Nuan first. Bai Hui didn't mind. Lu Chang'an spoke like this anyway. In his eyes, 98 people out of 100 are stupid. Bai Hui called An Nuan and told her about her cousin selling gold coins for him. She accepted An Nuan's unexpected and sincere blessing. Bai Hui offered to give An Nuan some money, but An Nuan naturally refused and said that I was eating snails, so I pressed the hands-free button. My mother and grandparents felt that they couldn't take it, so they reminded Bai Hui to pay attention to account security, manage finances rationally, and not let too many relatives and friends know about the windfall. Bai Hui thanked An Nuan. Kind reminder. An Nuan still insisted, and An Nuan also insisted. After several refusals and feigned anger, the two parties reached an agreement and agreed on a time to go shopping together. Bai Hui would bleed profusely, but he was determined not to ask for money. It's really annoying. No wonder you two are so in love. I think maybe the closeness of three views is the foundation for a stable relationship. For example, you don't take money as seriously as I do, Bai Hui said, feeling a little weird. You don't take money so seriously, otherwise you wouldn't be able to share so much. You just think that money can give you more security. Lu Chang'an thought about it, but didn't say that. Go shopping with me. Have you ever heard of the 19th level of hell? Ah. A man who is infatuated, starts a mess and ends up giving up, and has too many romantic debts will enter the 19th level of hell after death, and this level of hell is completely different from the previous one. It is a huge shopping mall. This shopping mall, there are shopping boutiques for women from countless time and space all over the world. These men come to the 19th level of hell, and their torture is to accompany female ghosts to the mall. Lu Chang'an. You said the same thing when An Nuan asked you to accompany him to the mall if he had the ability. I'm not stupid. Bai Fen was so angry that she dragged Lu Chang'an into the mall. Lu Chang'an was about to hold her head down, but he vaguely felt two malicious gazes. He hesitated for a moment, did not get rid of it, and walked in lazily. To the shopping mall. Bai Hui fulfilled her wish with satisfaction. After wandering around for an hour, she finally got a bag at Hermes, and her own bag became no longer heavy. After buying the bag, Bai Hui became more nervous than before, with an expression of disbelief. After walking out of the store, Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an blankly. Hit me to see if I'm dreaming. I actually own Hermes. Lu Chang'an was very willing to satisfy her and slapped her on the face. Bai Hui came back to her senses, her cheeks were red, she looked around, and quickly pulled Lu Chang'an away, walking to a remote corner, and then got angry. Why did you hit me in the face? Others will think we are lovers. A girl just bought a very expensive bag to satisfy her vanity. The boy couldn't stand it and thought she was too vain, so he gave her a slap in the face because she couldn't afford it and had to make a fuss. It's very embarrassing. You think too much. Lu Chang'an nodded and admitted that what she said made sense, but the point was actually this. A woman's thinking is really strange. Bai Hui touched her face and looked at her newly bought bag, with a silly smile on her face again. This is a bag that a woman must have after working hard all her life. It doesn't have to be many, but she must have one. Bai Hui looked like her life was complete. This is a woman. She only has so little money, and it feels like she can spend it all in 2 or 3 days, and she still thinks it is a necessity. Lu Chang'an has no objection. He is responsible for implementing his own ideas and he will not criticize or give advice. The money was almost spent, and Bai Hui was no longer nervous. She was ready to say goodbye to Lu Chang'an and take a taxi back. Thank you, Bai Hui said sincerely. Follow me this way, and we'll walk some more. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Ah! Lu Chang'an waved and walked forward by himself. Bai Hui hesitated for a moment, her heart racing. Did Lu Chang'an want her to accompany him for a while? Lu Chang'an picked a small alley and walked over. Small alleys in the city center of big cities are often brightly lit. Food stalls can avoid the higher store rents and make a living. The alleys are very safe. Bai Hui also bought a portion of potatoes. A serving of spicy edamame. After walking through the alley and arriving at the square park, the place became much quieter. At this point, the adults who were out for a walk had already left and the nightlife had not yet begun, so the park was very quiet. The two thieves who had been following Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui finally ran out and asked Bai Hui to hand over the money. I bought a bag. How about I give this bag to you? Don't kill me." Bai Hui was so frightened that she trembled all over and handed over the bag tremblingly. "You've worked so hard all your life just to give it away like this." Lu Chang'an couldn't help but find it funny. Laughing Nima. The thief was very angry. This man disrespected his professional deterrence. But before he finished scolding, Lu Chang'an grabbed the two people and threw them under the bridge in the garden square. Ah! When Bai Hui saw Lu Chang'an being so cruel and nervous just now, he fell into a trance and fell into the flower bed nearby. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 236. Lu Chang'an lifted Bai Hui out of the flower bed. This narrow flower garden was meant to isolate the bridge opening and prevent pedestrians from accidentally falling. Bai Hui's head and shoulders had been stretched out, hanging empty, with his hands and feet spread out. She started scratching randomly and looking at the bridge below. She was also startled. "These two people must have been following you since you were withdrawing money from the bank." Lu Chang'an gently patted Bai Fen's little face stained with some grass leaves. "Are you a vase? The vase should also look better. Only then can it become a promising career. You see, you are not only average looking, but also have a bad brain. You are always filling your head with water. If I hadn't caught you just now, you would have fallen and your head would have banged. Maybe some water can be released, and the flow is rushing. The sun is shining over the mountains, and the yellow river flows into the sea. It has caused problems in the drainage system of Juncha City, leading to public criticism and public resentment. I can report this. Is there water in your head?" Bai Hui stared blankly at Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui had never been hurt like this before. She still didn't look good. At least everyone except Lu Chang'an said she was a lovely girl. But at this time, she was not in the mood to care about Lu Chang'an, who was talking and laughing calmly. She clutched her chest tightly to slow down her pounding heart. These two people, they, have been staring at me for so long." Bai Hui stuttered again, thinking about the fact that someone has been watching him looking for opportunities to rob him, and maybe even rob someone else. It's not impossible, after all, she is so cute and has big breasts. It is so normal and terrible for bad people to be unable to control their evil thoughts. There are no two of these people in Starbucks. Apart from paying attention at the bank, how would they know you have money in your bag? Then they must have been in the bank. I saw them in the bank. They would have been caught by surveillance cameras in the bank, and they came to rob me. They would definitely be caught very soon. They have imagined it." Bai Hui reached over and looked under the bridge in surprise. If everyone could accurately grasp the risks and control themselves rationally, how could there be so much mess in this world? Lu Chang'an shook his head. What Lu Chang'an said always made sense. Bai Hui was still worried. He had wanted to take a taxi and these two people would definitely follow him. He still had to walk for a while after getting off the bus at his house. He would probably be robbed by then. Cannot imagine. Bai Hui breathed nervously, clutching her chest loosely and tightly, matching the rhythm of her breathing. "Stupid woman," Lu Chang'an sighed. "Vanity is nothing, because vanity costs your life." but according to the pastoral feminist way of thinking and accountability attitude, the fault is of course the two robbers. You are right. Yes, this is your right and freedom. Well, I think so too. If you leave these two people like this, will you be okay? Bai Hui turned a deaf ear to Lu Chang'an's sarcasm. She was more or less used to it, not to mention that now was the time when she was ashamed and afraid, and she didn't have the confidence to refute. Lu Chang'an had no choice but to change the subject by worrying about him. Yes, that's all. In the first case, if both people are dead, there is no problem. After all, there are no cameras here. In the second case, if one person is dead and the other is alive, then the living person will definitely run away and he will not give evidence. I and my teammates went to rob, and then someone threw them from the bridge and one of them died. The dead person would naturally be considered to have slipped and fell from above. In the third case, if neither of them died, there would be no problem, Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. Bai Hui hurriedly grabbed Lu Chang'an again, and leaned over to take a look. The two thieves under the bridge stood up. It seemed that they were not dead. Bai Hui suddenly became angry and scratched in the flower bed, throwing away the clods of soil, branches, and leaves. Go down and beat people. The two thieves got up, staggered over the railing and ran away. A thief rolled over and was hit by an electric car. He rolled and lay on the ground. The electric car was startled. When he saw the thief struggling to get up on the ground, he hurriedly accelerated and ran away. Bai Hui, who witnessed all this, nervously grabbed Lu Chang'an's arm. According to the current laws, regulations, and responsibility division system, you frightened this guy and caused the accident. You have to bear a large part of the responsibility. Lu Chang'an opened her hand and said gently, okay, it's a grasshopper on a rope. No, you are the grasshopper, and I am the one holding the rope to tie the grasshopper. Bai Hui looked around, panicked and grabbed Lu Chang'an again, and ran away, squealing. After running a long way, Bai Hui hid behind a newsstand and poked her head out to take a look. Lu Chang'an didn't know the meaning of her sneaky movements. We won't be arrested, right? Bai Hui doesn't want to be arrested. She hasn't yet twisted her beloved Hermes bag on the street to feel the envious and jealous eyes of women. How could he be caught? I killed countless people and nothing happened. Lu Chang'an shook his head and glanced at Bai Fen's crisp, delicate, and slender neck. Then will you kill me to silence me? Bai Hui thought of this. Lu Chang'an seemed to have the temperament to kill and silence me. I will dig a cellar and lock you up. After a few decades, when the noise has subsided, I will release you. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and nodded, saying that this was good. Are you kidding? Bai Hui tried hard to keep his smile from deforming, because it felt like his face was distorted. Well, actually I haven't raised pigs for a long time. It's disgusting. It scared me to death. Bai Hui jumped up and punched Lu Chang'an while crying and laughing. Lu Chang'an pressed her forehead and pushed her away. Bai Hui danced and danced but couldn't reach him. Lu Chang'an was much taller than her, not to mention he had practiced the art of pulling out seedlings. Gone. Lu Chang'an pushed a little harder, flicked Bai Hui's forehead with his finger, turned around and left. He was not her flower protector. There were no predators watching, so she could just take a taxi back. Bai Hui stood under the street lamp, touched his forehead, and suddenly laughed. Listening to his own laughter, he seemed a little silly. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an's back, and the emotion in his eyes was like his shadow under the street lamp. For a while, elongated, shortened for a while, ups and downs. This place was very close to the river. Lu Chang'an smelled the breath of the river wind and walked slowly to the river. He followed the scenery along the river to a bridge, and then walked back to his home. Naturally, the mahjong parlor has been closed, which makes Lu Chang'an feel a little regretful. It's rare that he is in the mood to play mahjong today. It just so happens that the old man and old lady have received a new consolation payment. I think he won't be too shameless if he loses. For big ones, there should be no problem if they negotiate for half the price, but it's not impossible to run away when you encounter a crazy guy who pushes mahjong. Interesting. Lu Chang'an took a shower, and still planned to lecture Shang Guandandan about politics and shading the sky tonight. He would tell more stories today, but he must break them at key points and force her to speak out again. Currently, what Lu Chang'an is looking forward to is, just to get her out of this coffin. The little girl is young and beautiful, and she is not afraid of getting pimples on her butt all day long. That would destroy the artistic conception of beauty as jade. It will break out tomorrow, and Gao Dui and Bai Hui will be added to the character list, so you can compare your feelings. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 237. When Lu Chang'an came to the carriage, he didn't say much, but continued to tell the story of shading the sky. This time he spoke for a longer time without pausing in the middle. He stopped only when a key rhythm was reached and went back to make a pot of tea and hold it in his hand. Returning to the carriage, Lu Chang'an drank a few sips of hot tea before continuing. At this point, everything the protagonist's ex-girlfriend Li Xiaoman did showed all the details that made her unable to match the protagonist. With you like this, the ancients are different. In the novels we modern people read, to become a heroine, the most important thing is to make readers feel that she has attributes, background, and cuteness that match the protagonist. The disgust of pride, otherwise it will be difficult to clean up. Actually, this is due to the natural influence of cultural roots. If you read the Book of Songs carefully, you will find that the matching between men and women is very good. A girl is matched with a cunning boy, a mature woman is matched with a custard, a poor girl is matched with a commoner, and a woman is matched with a strong man. A lady matches a gentleman, and this well-behaved match is written in a simple, luxurious, elegant, and charming way. It writes about the world of eroticism, mourning without sadness, lust without lewd elegance. Well, in fact, it is not lewd at all. It's okay, many of the women in the articles are so well written, it's inevitable that people will be tempted to add some erotic descriptions, that's just human nature. Lu Chang'an took another sip of tea, glanced at the quiet and composed coffin, and continued. The protagonist and his group came to a different world environment, and their actions fully reflected some political issues, because politics must be an impersonal act, so it also implies that collective behavior takes precedence over individual behavior. This is what makes politics so annoying in many cases, and the protagonist's actions are against political behavior. This is a very popular point among readers. 1. The school of thought represented by the ancient Greek thinker Aristotle believes that politics is by no means just a variety of behaviors that people use to meet their own needs under conditions of scarcity of resources. The protagonist and his party embody this when they seize and distribute magic weapons. At this point, politics includes more complex issues, which are reflected in this story: who should have a greater say, who should be the leader, to what extent his power should be, what restrictions should be placed on it, and how small it should be. When the interests of a group or individual conflict, how can the authority of the leader be justified? I tell you about the book Shading the Sky, not to make you think how interesting the story is and how cool it is for the protagonist to upgrade and fight monsters, but to talk about politics. The author of this book is certainly not for politics. When writing a story, I extracted these views because modern political problems are more common and ubiquitous. People's contempt for authority is unprecedented in this era, which will have a strong impact on your thinking. I will tell you about it to prevent you from having the third problem. The image of a collapsed outlook on life. I have seen many books talking about time travel, but in fact they have not paid attention to the impact on the physical and mental state caused by the impact of three outlooks. I am a modern person, you are an ancient person, you have to remember this. Lu Chang'an paused for a while. Can you use the sanitary napkin I gave you? Can you use it? Lu Chang'an can be sure that she will not have menstruation when her body has been in stasis for the past 2,000 years. Otherwise, wouldn't the coffin be filled with a coffin's worth of blood? It's a bit disgusting, but Lu Chang'an has been engaged in scientific research for many years, so he can naturally accept the picture he imagined. It's just ordinary. Shang Guandandan didn't answer his question. Normally, that pack of sanitary napkins is only enough for 1 month. Do you still want it? Lu Chang'an asked in a different way. Want? Finally there was a voice, it was small and a little urgent, as if he was worried that he would no longer ask this question. Lu Chang'an laughed twice and nodded, okay, Aunt Xia's canteen should be closed. I'll buy it for you tomorrow. This Aunt Xia is the owner of the canteen and is someone you need to know in the future, because it's delicious like you. The canteen owner is the most enviable existence for a girl who talks nonsense. She has all kinds of delicious food, such as ice cream, spicy strips, planet cups, etc. Shang Guandandan did not refute Lu Chang'an's comment that it was delicious but mouth-watering. She had already fallen into his hands again, what else could she not tolerate? What are Lashao and Planet Cup? When it comes to sanitary napkins, we have to talk about mobile phones, because these are two basic living materials that are indispensable for modern humans. Although sanitary napkins are only for women, they also affect men's daily lives, not to mention military training and some situations where men it can also be used. Lu Chang'an was about to talk about the wide range of uses of sanitary napkins, but felt that it seemed too far. The key point is mobile phones. Do you know what a mobile phone is? With a mobile phone, you can instantly communicate with people thousands of miles away. You can make calls and see the other party, you can also buy clothes and food on your mobile phone, and you can communicate with countless people. Lu Che had to have a mobile phone at that time. Do you know how big the impact would be? Of course, the most important function of a mobile phone is for entertainment. A mobile phone that cannot play games, read novels, or watch movies will make people feel out of touch with modern society, and they should go dancing in the square. Lu Chang'an took out his mobile phone, regardless of whether Shang Guandandan could see it or not, demonstrated various functions, and then patted the coffin. Do you feel like an uneducated stupid monkey? Do you want to play with your mobile phone? Ah, come out if you want to play. You, treason. If I were a monkey, you would be the little monkey. Obviously, Shang Guandandan, who was very tolerant, was very angry with Lu Chang'an, but he still didn't jump out of the coffin. Hey, I've said it before. Once you're a teacher, you'll always be a father. Our seniority levels are already equal. You're just a little girl, why should you pretend to be an adult? Shang Guandandan completely disagreed with his statement that once a teacher is always a father. He stopped answering his questions. Lu Chang'an felt that he had gained something today. She made a few more noises, and it was impossible for her not to want to play with her mobile phone. If those local turtles, gods, ghosts, and monsters from myths and legends suddenly came to him, they would be very interested in mobile phones. It would be extremely interesting. Would a little girl like Shang Guandandan be interested in this magic weapon? I can't give you this mobile phone because she was given by my girlfriend. I will buy a cheap mobile phone from the blue and green factory for you to use tomorrow. Lu Chang'an waved the mobile phone on the coffin. A strong suction suddenly passed through the mobile phone to Lu Chang'an's fingers. Lu Chang'an quickly tightened his grip, and the mobile phone was almost snatched away by this force that did not know where it came from. You are still Shang Guandandan. You want to steal other people's things. You should write an edict and ask people to pay tribute, just like when you wrote the edict to depose the emperor. Lu Chang'an put the phone back in his pocket. Really, the boss is old and immature, he just wants to grab what he wants, even Zhou Dongdong is more mature than her. Lu Chang'an was certain that Shang Guandandan was not trapped by the coffin. Instead, she was able to operate the coffin, and in a sense, This coffin was much more mysterious than his mobile phone. I regret that I won't give you a mobile phone. Unless you exchange the coffin with me, I will buy you a mobile phone. Lu Chang'an thought about it carefully and said to Shang Guandandan with certainty, believe me, you won't regret it, it's a good deal, your mobile phone is a magic weapon that can do almost anything, it's much more fun than your broken coffin. Shang Guandandan ignored Lu Chang'an. It seemed that she was not as stupid as he thought. Lu Chang'an stopped telling Shang Guandandan stories and went back to sleep. The night is deep, and the leaves of the sycamore trees are swaying in scattered pieces. The exterior lights of Bailong Center are still like the stairs to heaven, extending circle by circle toward the deepest part of the night. Facing Bailong Center towards Juzhu, there is a hotel building with a slightly lower terrain but equally dazzling appearance. It was one of the most luxurious hotels in Juncha in the past. The standard room price is currently second only to Geotourism. The location is slightly inferior to the St. Regis Hotel. In this hotel called Juncha Grand Hyatt, the Riverview rooms are very popular, especially at night when there are fireworks on Orange Island. Book a room where you can see the fireworks on Orange Island and watch the people crowding on the riverside at your feet, while yourself but being high up, overlooking the fireworks in peace and contentment, seems to make people feel like enjoying the life of a successful person, or being romantic with a couple. The third wife did not book a room in Bailong Center, but booked a room in this hotel. The room did not face the Riverview, but faced the urban area of Bailong Center, which was just right for a telescope. Saw Lu Chang'an, armored transport vehicles and sycamore trees. The third wife inserted her fingers into a book of the Book of Songs, held the book, and took her eyes away from the eyepiece, confirming that Lu Chang'an had walked out of the carriage tonight and went back to his room to sleep. If you have plum blossoms, they are actually 7. Please pray to me, a common man, that they will be auspicious. If you have plums, they will be 3. If you have plums, they will be here today. If you have plums, it will be a basket full. Please pray to me, common people, just say it. A girl with blonde hair took the Book of Songs from the third wife and read it once. Listen carefully to this voice, which is as round as a pearl, but like all artificial intelligence pronunciations, no matter how standard and close to everyday human voices, it still has a digital flavor. Take a closer look at the blonde girl. Her eyes are dark and deep, but there is no agility or vitality. They are clearly just some kind of inorganic material. Its movements are not much different from those of a normal person, and are even more flexible, but the way those joints rotate is obviously not human-like. It's a robot. The third wife turned around and took the book back from the hand of the robot that was reading the poem, her fingers still stuck in the page. The woman in this poem is eager to wait for her lover, because time is short, but for you, why should you be anxious? This poem does not suit your mood, the robot girl calmly analyzed. For modern robots, it is not difficult to make such a conclusion based on the target person's information, not to mention that it is not pure AI intelligence. The third wife ignored it, just opened it, looked at it a few times, and then turned it over again. Yechinayu never left the coffin throughout the summer vacation. The third wife put down her book and glanced at the target in the telescope again. During the summer vacation, a lighting equipment company under the Baojun Group donated a batch of lamps to improve the county's and the lighting conditions at night in an old city, including Lu Chang'an's community, can make the telescope work better, but Lu Chang'an doesn't seem to have noticed this. This is not a reflection on the retreat of the god of death. Invasion. How are you so sure that Yechinayu must be in the coffin? The robot girl suddenly turned her head in a few circles and tested her own functions. As she spoke, her voice sounded as if it had been blown by the wind. Intuition. Women's intuition is as inaccurate as their aunts. The robot girl chuckled. This is a cold joke, showing that I don't have such a low-level physiological condition. It seems that your data selection program was not written well. Did you search for this information on Baidu? Who told you that a woman's aunt is definitely inaccurate? Or are you simply an inferior version of Siri? Don't compare me to a slut like Siri. Please shut up and let your master speak to me directly. She is asleep. She uses her neural responses during sleep to control my communication with you. It is no different from normal situations. The robot girl took out a gold coin and tossed it around in her hand. The third wife was able to understand the meaning of this action. The robot was proving its similarity to its owner by imitating the actions that her owner often made. Do you think Yechinayu has seen me? The third wife sighed. She didn't really care about anything with the robot. For a robot that searches for information on the internet all day long, it's normal for it to be self-righteous and have problems with its logic. After all, its core algorithm is still imitation in the final analysis, and there are many fools on the internet who are influencing it. He didn't recognize you when he saw you. Who told you to kill the real third wife in the first place? In order to replace her, you also made your face look like the previous third wife, the robot girl said in a schadenfreude tone. The third wife's expression changed. She turned around and grabbed the robot girl's neck, with a stern look on her face. Where did you hear that? Let me go, cough, cough. The robot girl imitated the pronunciation of human trachea being stimulated. I don't need to hear, I am a very smart girl. I based on the data and human behavior and your current physiological reactions can tell that my analysis is correct. Then have you judged that I will break your neck? Without. It was too late. The third wife pulled out the head of the machine girl, exposing dense circuits and components under the skin-like material at the damaged location. But this is meaningless. The data of this thing will be transmitted and saved. The third wife clapped her hands and didn't care very much. This kind of conspiracy theory is quite popular even in Taiwan, but they think that the third wife planned the three events herself. It's just the young master's death. The robot girl struggled to get up from the ground, picked up her head, then sent the recovery command, and then sat on the ground motionless. Sorry, I'm not feeling well today, I'll do it again tomorrow. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuiken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 238. Zhongqing walked in and directed the robot girl to be loaded onto a trolley and sent to a van in the parking lot. A few men and women wearing jeans and short sleeves got out of the car. They looked at the robot girl holding her head, yelled a lot, and then moved the robot girl into the van and started playing with it. Looks like a dedicated maintenance team here. Zhongqing looked at it for a few times, smiled slightly, turned around and went upstairs. As a very ordinary woman, she has never liked to play with transformers since she was a child, and she has no interest in robots when she grows up. Even if the appearance of an AI robot simulates artificial intelligence, she has no interest in it. Just like Siri on her mobile phone, most of them are all times are closed. Zhongqing couldn't understand why that beautiful lady made a robot similar to her description. Most of the time, this robot was artificially retarded, not artificial intelligence. Isn't it scary to see a robot that looks similar to yourself, often saying stupid, creepy words, as if the birth of autonomous consciousness? This beautiful lady, with her dazzling golden hair, like the most dazzling luster under the sun, will also study at Shonan University. Why also? Because Miss Takezan will also attend Shonan University. Baojun Group has funded many projects at Shonan University. Zhongqing was sensitive to the fact that whether it was the third young lady or the young lady who was always playing with gold coins, they had something to do with Lu Chang'an when they came to Xiongnan University. What is it about Lu Chang'an that deserves such attention from people with prominent backgrounds? Is it just because of his ancestors? Zhongqing could not imagine it for a moment, but she was not stupid enough to think that Lu Chang'an was really ordinary. It was funny to think that she thought Lu Chang'an was a migrant worker who was the concubine of the old madam. Zhongqing returned upstairs. The standard price of the best suite in the hotel was only more than 30,000 yuan excluding taxes and fees. The negotiated price for a long private room obtained by Baojun was certainly more cost-effective. The third wife did not make too many demands. It's just a place to rest. As the third wife's assistant, Zhongqing also saves a lot of work. He just thinks about the telescope in Miss Susan's room and the telescope in the third wife's room. The mother and daughter are the most eye-catching in the center of Juncha. It always makes Zhongqing feel extremely ridiculous to peek at Lu Chang'an from the two tall buildings. When he entered the room, the third wife was still by the window. She was bending over to adjust the telescope. Looking from behind, she saw this beautiful woman with mature curves that made women blush. Zhongqing walked over, bent down, kneeling in front of the third wife. He put the slippers at her feet. He gently untied the thin straps on her shoes with his fingers, pulled out the soft and fragrant little feet, and pinched a few green and tender toes before putting them in the slippers. The third wife was very satisfied with Zhongqing's attentiveness. Before asking her to put on slippers, she pinched her toes. This was a habit that only the maids in the Zhu family's Tadeo house knew. No one taught Zhongqing, but she could still find it carefully. I'll give you a holiday these 2 days. A relative of yours has passed away and you have a special wedding to attend. You go and have a look on behalf of your own family. Don't say that your mother and daughter have made a fortune in Taiwan, so you don't take your relatives here seriously. Yes, the third wife patted Zhongqing's hair and said softly. I don't know, Zhongqing said doubtfully. I won't be afraid anymore. The third wife hugged Zhongqing and said, go and run the water, I want to take a bath. Zhongqing was stunned, but he hugged the third wife harder. Tears wet the third wife's shoulders, and her soft arms twitched. The third wife did not speak, but gently stroked Zhongqing's soft long hair, looking calmly at the brightly lit city outside the window. Zhongqing thought of the drunken men who lived with his mother in Juncha when he was a child, accompanied by his mother's screams, and the countless nights when the shivering little girl hugged his shoulders and huddled at the foot of the bed. She would even be kicked out of bed because she was in the way and was a loser, because of the school uniform money, because she envied her cousin's candies, because of her timid eyes, and because of her thin appearance. A severe beating all over her head and face. If her mother hadn't used her weaker body to protect her, would she have been able to wait until today? Are all dead? Well, it's clean. It's said that he was driving under the influence. He died miserably. The bitch will be punished by her own destiny. Zhongqing hugged Tian tightly. Her body gradually weakened. She lowered her head and kissed her instep. She was willing to kiss this woman's toes, even if it was the footprints left by her passing by. This was just a trivial matter, and the third wife didn't pay much attention to it. In a city as big as Juncha, a drunk driving tragedy is very rare and common. What's more, a drunk driving car accident is not tragic. He died a worthy death, right? Lu Chang'an woke up early the next morning. In addition to moving today, he also had to make some rice noodles, so he had to get up early and get busy. Rice noodles are the base of Lu Chang'an soup noodles. Qingshan town rice noodles are thin and dense in texture, full of toughness and very refreshing to eat, unlike the soft and mushy noodles in other provinces and cities. The soup is also the key point. It is cooked with tube bones and other ingredients for more than 3 hours. A new pork dumpling is added, which uses all the thin pork hind legs. It is first stir-fried and then deep-fried, and then soaked in freshly brewed chili oil and rice noodles. The preparation time for the stall is actually no less than that of Zhou Shuling's earlier stall, but the sales and profits are better. After Lu Chang'an finished his work, he put the soup, rice noodles, and dumplings on the noodle stall. Zhou Shuling had to go to the noodle stall early in the morning. He wanted to tidy up his original house. Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong had moved up yesterday. The house has 2 bedrooms, 1 living room, 1 kitchen, and 1 bathroom. The living room is connected to a small balcony. Lu Chang'an first moved up all the flowers and plants outside his original utility room, and then thought about tearing down one wall of the small balcony, so that the branches and leaves of the sycamore tree can be brought over to create a shade effect. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and thought it was feasible. He raised his fist and demolished a wall of the balcony. As for the details, of course he needed tools. To smash it with his fists or dig with his fingers felt that it was not very efficient and more primitive. Human beings feel barbaric, but Lu Chang'an is a modern man who is good at using tools. The awning roof was also removed, and Lu Chang'an felt that he could spend the rest of the summer vacation tinkering with this small house. The bricks for demolishing the wall fell downstairs. Lu Chang'an went downstairs to pick them up, smashed them into fine pieces with a hammer and threw them on the balcony. Naturally, he had no such aesthetic taste for things like laying ceramic tiles on the floor. After pouring water on the broken bricks and stones on the balcony, they were moist and glowing with an earthy red color. Lu Chang'an then arranged the flowers and plants, then placed his lounge chair on the balcony, and then used the clothes drying rod to pull a few strands. Huitong branches came and were tied to the top of the head. After doing all this, Lu Chang'an lay down on the balcony and took a very comfortable nap. After lunch, he went to the mahjong parlor again and saw Old Man Chien and Old Man Chin quarreling. It was probably because Old Man Chien won the game the year before last. Old Chin never gave Old Man Chin 20 yuan. Today, Old Man Chien lost 20 yuan and had to use the account from the year before last to offset it. Old Man Chin didn't remember it and was not allowed to count, so he started shouting and quarreling. Lu Chang'an watched with great interest. In the end, Old Man Chien was defeated and he counted 20 yuan to understand. After all, the debt was all from the year before last. Old Man Chien was cursing at himself, saying words such as "I'm crazy, Mom farewell, Gangzi" and so on. When he saw Lu Chang'an, he complained angrily, "I don't care about these 20 yuan. I can't even argue with him, but Old Man Chin has been dragged to dance in the square by MRS 10 last year. His body has not recovered, and he is always fighting for territory with others. His voice is really loud, and I can't even win against him. You keep tossing and turning and I yell at your mother. How can that be harmful?" Lu Chang'an shook his head. "Next time, change your words and say, 'I tease your third aunt.' He will inevitably be surprised. Why are you scolding me like that? What's wrong with my third aunt? Why are you teasing her?" He would even wonder, what does the third aunt look like? This time he was stunned and distracted, and he couldn't understand it. It was inevitable that his momentum would weaken, and he would be extremely depressed. "You winnable." It makes sense. Old Man Chien suddenly became energetic and trotted back to find Old Man Chin with his arms raised. "Everyone needs to be taught how to curse. If you divorce me, why don't you leave your ancestors' fault on the grave?" Lu Chang'an cursed a few words in Shaanxi and Qin dialect and left, lest Old Man Chien was defeated later and wanted to find him again. Come to consult, is Lu Chang'an such a vulgar person? The reason why he suddenly spoke Shaanxi and Qin dialect was of course because he thought of Shang Guandandan. Lu Chang'an knew that it was useless to promise to exchange coffins with her mobile phone. Although Shang Guandandan was young, she had experienced comparable palace battles. It's much more powerful in the Qing palace drama. Not to mention that people like you can't survive more than 3 episodes are often used in palace battle dramas, which makes them look very sinister. However, the common palace battle dramas are basically just the Qing palace. The entire Qing dynasty, compared with the heroes of the previous dynasties, what is there in the Qing palace? Can outstanding figures be compared with each other? Regardless of quality or quantity, it can't be compared. No matter how sinister it is, it still smells like a stupid pig rolling around. The level of your opponent determines your rank. In Shang Guandandan's era, although Lu Che, Huo Qubing, and Wei Qing, these peerless talents are no longer around, the grace and splendor left by these people can still influence her in subtle ways, not to mention her person who has been trying to control her. It can be said that the person who directly cultivated her sinister ideas in the palace was Huo Guang, the chief hero of Kailan Pavilion and the strong man who truly eliminated the hidden dangers of the Xiongnu in the Han dynasty. Not to mention the two emperors of Zhaoxian and Zhongxing, as well as someone who was deposed by her edict. Lu Chang'an didn't even buy a mobile phone, but just wanted to trick Shangguan Dandan into leaving her coffin, or trick her into taking away her coffin. That would be too naive and lively. So Lu Chang'an went to buy a mobile phone. As soon as he reached the gate of the community, he saw Zhu Huntang getting out of the car, holding a pure white lace parasol and looking at Lu Chang'an. Long time no see. Lu Chang'an greeted Zhu Huntang, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, like an acquaintance he hadn't seen for a long time, and then continued walking forward. Wait a minute, Zhu Huntang originally came to see Lu Chang'an, how could he let him run away? I thought I would say long time no see to you again in another month. Think about Eason Chan's song of the same name, is it full of emotional satisfaction and expectation for our long time no see in 1 month, Lu Chang'an said regretfully. It was obvious that this kind of satisfaction and expectation could not be realized, and Zhu Huntang had no intention of coming back to him in a month. We're not a couple. It's been a long time since we last saw each other, Eason Chan. Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an with his eyes widened. Oh, it was my mistake, Lu Chang'an apologized sincerely. Do you know why Zhongqing is not with me today? How did Lu Chang'an know? He doesn't care, not to mention that Zhongqing often follows the third wife, so it's normal not to follow Zhu Huntang. Because her father and uncle, the two uncles of your little white pig classmate, seemed to have a car accident while driving drunk, Zhu Huntang said fearfully. Who is the little white pig? That's not the point, okay. Well, it's not the point. In comparison, I don't care about the two dead people. The little white pig is a white fennel. Don't you think she's white and fat? Lu Chang'an didn't think so, but he didn't have any objection. Bai Hui was just a certain part of the body that was white and fat, so it wasn't a completely outrageous nickname. Zhu Huntang liked to give people nicknames, and they were all based on physical characteristics. Really low level and without quality. I suspect my mother killed them, Zhu Huntang suddenly said in a slightly trembling voice, trying to infect Lu Chang'an and scare him. Lu Chang'an still nodded. Even if Zhu Huntang suspected that he killed her, he would nod to agree with her, because doubts and denials would give Zhu Huntang the opportunity to say more nonsense. Seeing Lu Chang'an's reaction, Zhu Huntang was bored. She was just suspicious without any evidence. Of course, her casual talk would not have any impact on the third wife. I suspect that my mother has killed others. Zhu Huntang's voice really trembled. Lu Chang'an glanced at her and said, it's nothing. Killing people, pigs, chickens, and dogs. These things happen every day in this world. It's nothing unusual. Even if Lu Chang'an answered this time, Zhu Huntang did not continue talking. After looking around, he asked calmly, what are you going to do? Let's go together. I'm going to the bathroom. Lu Chang'an pointed to the public toilet. Zhu Huntang stamped his feet and watched Lu Chang'an enter the public toilet. He quickly stood farther away, but he was worried about the wind coming over and smelling the smell, so he walked to the other side of the street. But just as she walked to the other side of the street, Lu Chang'an had already come out. She quickly ran back and looked at Lu Chang'an with envious eyes. Boys can be so fast, but it is impossible for girls. I still remember the last time I went to Mayan Temple, Zhu Huntang regretted not letting the RV follow him. When he went to the public toilet, there were only a few men there, and they entered and exited very quickly and neatly. There are long queues here for women. Fortunately, women all have this experience and habit. When they really have to queue up to use the toilet, they are more tolerant. Do I want to show my superiority? Lu Chang'an looked into her eyes and knew that the little fairy was thinking about the problem under the skirt. But, Zhu Huntang didn't expect Lu Chang'an to be able to see through what she was envious of, and quickly denied it. Lu Chang'an continued walking. Why are you boys so fast? Zhu Huntang still couldn't help but want to ask. Search on the internet, thank you. Then do you want to wipe it with cotton cloth? Or rinse it in the sink? Zhu Huntang often thinks about this question. As for searching on the internet, it is impossible. How can a fairy search on the internet for such a vulgar question? Lu Chang'an stopped. Will the zombies take a detour when they see Zhu Huntang? Forget about the cotton cloth, put it in the sink and rinse it? You think your apron is usually as long as your waist? Zhu Huntang's question was very graphic, and the picture of the sink involuntarily appeared in front of Lu Chang'an's eyes, washing his hands. From the faucet of the pool to the edge of the pool, it is at least 40 or 50 centimeters long. Then you won't wipe or wash? Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an in confusion. Do you know TikTok? Ah. We rely on Douyin to create rhythm, which is Douyin. I see. Zhu Huntang imagined it again and looked at Lu Chang'an with disdain. It's so dirty. You don't care about hygiene. You are such a fairy. Lu Chang'an sneered and didn't bother to pay attention to her. Of course, fairies must first pay attention to hygiene so that they can avoid being contaminated by dust, Zhu Huntang said proudly. Lu Chang'an still went to the old mobile phone market to buy mobile phones. 20 years ago, this place was quite prosperous. It started from the era when everyone had a call machine in their waist, and continued to the extreme prosperity during the period of copycat phones, and then slowly declined. However, after 20 years, Lu Chang'an shook his head. The world is developing so fast. Even Lu Chang'an, who has long been accustomed to living slowly, has accelerated his pace of life. Now, unlike before, he can spend 100 years absorbing the achievements of civilization in the last 100 years, and there will be no qualitative changes in the future, and he will not feel outdated. This is not possible now. It takes you 100 years to master it. You have acquired a little bit of knowledge, but the fruits of knowledge that have exploded over the past 100 years can blow you up like a primitive man. Lu Chang'an is someone who wants to keep pace with the times. Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an and looked around. She didn't show any exaggeration, she just didn't look knowledgeable. Even the uncle sitting on the roadside holding a white paintboard, she had to go over to see what words were written on the paintboard and what they meant. This is where the poor come, Zhu Huntang finally concluded. I don't mean to be sarcastic. The poor exist objectively and are equal to the concept of the rich in terms of existence. Lu Chang'an didn't care at all what she meant. He bought a low-end machine from Blue and Green Factory. This machine also optimized the front camera and had beautification effects. It also optimized some apps commonly used by women and was smooth to use. Let me tell you, in fact, the chip industry in mainland China has made some progress, and our Zhu family has also made contributions. We are the lead in some things, Zhu Huntang said with some pride. Because of this mobile phone advertisement, what kind of chip is used as a selling point? This is normal. Multi-line investment in politics is the nature of capitalists. Lu Chang'an paid the money, took the phone and walked back. Yes, this is the direction of my study. I want to dance between capital and politics with ease. Zhu Huntang stood on tiptoes and made a ballet dance. Lu Chang'an didn't even smile. By the way, I remembered what I came to see you for today. Zhu Huntang smiled slightly. I went to the United States with Qinyan during the summer vacation. During the period, she went to treat sleepwalking. I visited a famous magic master. He is comparable to you, talk a lot, you basically know everything you want to know. I asked him a lot of questions and he answered my questions. I already know all the secrets of your jumping off building magic. Lu Chang'an raised his head and looked at Beilong Center in the distance. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an's expression and felt extremely happy. He asked you to continue pretending to be mysterious and pretentious. Aren't things in this world consciously tending to run in a way that satisfies Zhu Huntang? So she will eventually satisfy herself. You go perform, you jump down, I applaud you. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang expectantly. I only know it in theory, and I didn't say that I would perform it in person. In short, this master will come to Junsha to perform soon, and he said he wants to compete with you. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an provocatively. Why? So, do you dare to agree? Don't dare. Zhu Huntang stamped his feet angrily. He originally wanted to use his reputation as a great magician to scare Lu Chang'an, but his attitude made Zhu Huntang not feel satisfied at all. Forget it, since Lu Chang'an has no superpowers and he can't be his personal bodyguard, what's the point of targeting him like this? Maybe fairies and mortals just shouldn't interact. The generation gap between the two people is doomed to make daily interactions unhappy. Zhu Huntang was thinking this, and when he saw Lu Chang'an suddenly stopped on the side of the road, lost in thought, he quickly ran over and asked curiously, "What are you looking at? Do you want to buy crystals? In fact, these are artificial crystals and do not have the power of constellations." Yes, it has no mysterious power at all. This year's Chinese Valentine's Day falls on August 28th. No one ever said Chinese Valentine's Day was Valentine's Day before, but after all, it's not uncommon for customs to change. Lu Chang'an stopped when he saw a merchant's poster about Chinese Valentine's Day. I heard that we used to make dumplings for the Chinese Valentine's Day. Use your brain to make dumpling fillings. Do you think I don't know about the Chinese Valentine's Day? I'm just saying that in some places and in certain eras, there is a custom of making dumplings on the Chinese Valentine's Day, not that the Chinese Valentine's Day is a festival for making dumplings. Which places and which times? Anyway, yes, I forgot. Lu Chang'an walked home, and Zhu Huntang actually followed him all the way. Lu Chang'an was not an impatient person, and he was not in a hurry to get his mobile phone to seduce Shang Guandandan. He sat down upstairs on the balcony that was newly used today, and ignored Zhu Huntang. Took the new mobile phone and started busy, for example, set the mobile phone screen to the image of a cartoon little queen, used the name Shang Guandandan on QQ and WeChat, and the remark was Empress Dowager Xiaozhao of the Han Dynasty, and then registered on Weibo. I was about to post my first Weibo post and typed, "This is my selfie." Of course Shang Guandandan didn't take any selfies, so Lu Chang'an sent a photo of the coffin and uploaded it to make things better. The entire phone is labeled Shang Guandandan in every detail. This is a very strong psychological suggestion that will make Shang Guandandan realize that this is her phone, but the phone is still in Lu Chang'an's hands. Her desire to get the mobile phone will be extremely strong, which will make her consider or even accept Lu Chang'an's conditions or requirements. All kinds of requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 239. After Lu Chang'an fiddled with his phone for a while, he thought about it and downloaded the entire novel. It cost more than 200 yuan for more than 6 million words. For Lu Chang'an, this was considered a relatively extravagant consumption behavior in his life recently. But with so many words, it's still a good deal if you think about it carefully. After all, many authors have to write such a long novel until the end of the Year of the Monkey. I couldn't bear to let my children catch a wolf, so I bought a mobile phone and didn't care about spending more money. After Zhu Huntang visited Lu Chang'an's empty house, he came to him and sighed, "My bathroom is bigger than yours." In Zhu Huntang's bathroom, you can lie in the bathtub and watch the seafood in the aquarium. Even Zhou Dongdong is envious. It's really shocking and inferior. Lu Chang'an is very willing to satisfy others' sense of superiority. However, in ancient Europe, bathrooms and public toilets were also social occasions. The meaning of the bathroom is to take a bath together, a bathroom for one person, even if you can row a boat in the bathhouse, and the water vapor is dripping like a rainforest, so it's just so-so. The meaning of the bathroom is to take a bath with others. Zhu Huntang couldn't understand it at all. I don't want it. Lu Chang'an was not interested in discussing the classical school and modern humanistic significance of bathing with her. Many wars in human history were related to bathing. For example, in a case in the history of the Buro-Penza War, 300 soldiers who were marching tiredly in winter were in the final decisive battle to defend the empire. Ahead was a large city with 5,000 enemy troops. However, they heard that there was another large city nearby that was famous for its hot spring baths, so they decided to go to this hot spring city to recuperate and take a good bath. After bathing in the water, the horses' hooves crossed the city wall and trampled on countless roofs. The cavalry army, the third largest in the empire, successfully occupied the city. After bathing comfortably and repairing, it was ambushed and annihilated. Later, this war was made into an epic blockbuster, full of blood, humanity, war, glory, and so on. Lu Chang'an put away his mobile phone, picked up a copy of God and Gold and opened it. It's so boring. Zhu Huntang didn't have a stool to sit on, so he stood beside Lu Chang'an and looked around idly. Lu Chang'an nodded, thinking that she was indeed bored. He is not bored. As long as he can feel the flow of air at any time, he can hear the rhythm of the wind and smell the leaves and soil. Gradually, there is the sound of insects and noise in the distance, and the light moves diagonally. Shadows pull out different patterns of light and shadow. How can it be boring? It's just that compared to experiencing the world, human beings prefer to satisfy their own desires, because that kind of satisfaction is stronger. But everything in the world is always calm and gentle in the long term, and the more intense and climax the state is, the more short term it is. You will live upstairs here from now on? Do you want me to help you move? Need not. Lu Chang'an could understand very well that Zhu Huntang's move was probably just a phone call to ask someone to come and do the work. As for her, how can a fairy do physical work and run up and down the stairs? Is that a fairy? Fairies can't even sweat. Zhu Huntang became even more bored, so he stepped over Lu Chang'an's calf, came to the balcony, and reached out to pull the sycamore leaves. Lu Chang'an did not tie the branches very hard. Zhu Huntang pulled like this, and a sycamore leaf swept over. Zhu Huntang screamed, tilted his body, and fell from the balcony. The fence wall on the balcony was smashed by Lu Chang'an. Although the second floor is not high, there are always various ways for the unlucky person to die. What if his head hits the ground? Lu Chang'an took a look, reached out and grabbed Zhu Huntang's feet, and lifted her up. Zhu Huntang is the kind of person whose head falls to the ground when he falls from the second floor. It may be because his head is relatively empty and his body's center of gravity is different from that of ordinary people. Lu Chang'an thought at that moment that if she looked like she landed on her butt, he would leave her alone. It was only so high anyway, and the floors of the old building were already short, not to mention the low utility room below. It looked like her head would hit the ground, so Lu Chang'an took action. After all, her head couldn't be broken. What if it really caused a flood? Lu Chang'an put Zhu Huntang aside and continued to read his book. After Zhu Huntang was stunned for a short time, he screamed with lingering fear, and his pupils were dilated. Except for the car accident when he was a child, which had intense emotional ups and downs and left several fragmented scenes, this should have been the most dangerous moment in Zhu Huntang's life. Zhu Huntang screamed for a while, and finally calmed down fearfully, and said to Lu Chang'an in a stuttering voice, "Thank you, thank you." After saying that, Zhu Huntang touched her head. She had been lifted upside down by Lu Chang'an just now. It is conceivable that if Lu Chang'an had not had time, she would have landed on her head. "You're welcome." What would happen if I really fell just now? Zhu Huntang still touched his head. The possibility of death is relatively small, but the possibility of concussion and cervical spine injury is relatively high. After all, when you fall, dancing and supporting yourself can relieve a large part of the impact on the head. Lu Chang'an looked sideways. He glanced at the height and said, I wish I had the head of a woodpecker. I heard that woodpeckers don't get concussions, Zhu Huntang said with some envy. Part of the reason why the wood-chasing bird is not prone to concussions has a lot to do with its brain structure and tongue. The wood-chasing bird's tongue will pass through the maxilla, then drill out from the right nostril, and then exit from both sides. It passes through the middle of the eye, splits into two branches, goes all the way around the entire brain, goes back through both sides of the neck, and then extends out through the mandible for more than 10 centimeters. Are you sure you want the head of a wood-chasing bird? Lu Chang'an imagined after looking at the picture of Zhu Huntang holding the head of a wood-chasing bird. I feel that it is indeed more beautiful. How is that possible? This is too weird, Zhu Huntang said in disbelief. You can go to Baidu and have a look. When asked a question by people like Zhu Huntang, have a look on Baidu is full of authority. They generally believe that it can be found on Baidu, so there is no difference. Of course, this is also true for Zhu Munyao. Zhu Huntang did not search, because her habit is, if I have a question, I will ask others. It is their job for others to give them the correct answer. Otherwise, why would she pay them for it? If there is a problem, she needs to search and solve it by herself, then she does not need many people to work for her, and these people will be unemployed. From this perspective, Zhu Huntang also wants to provide jobs and prove the conscience of capitalists for the sake of thinking, I am too lazy to use my hands and brains. She didn't invite Lu Chang'an, but habits are always hard to change. Okay, you saved my life. Need not. I'm not done yet. If you want to thank me, shutting up is the best way to thank me. Zhu Huntang pursed his lips, lifted up his skirt, and made a kicking motion behind his back. Only then did he remember that because he was wearing a longer skirt today, he did not wear safety pants. He had just dropped it like this. Go down. Didn't Lu Chang'an see everything? Zhu Huntang blushed calmly while observing Lu Chang'an's expression. He was neither about to make a move, nor did he force himself to calm down after being stimulated. Is this his reaction? Zhu Huntang felt that he was at a bit of a disadvantage. Lu Chang'an still acted like he didn't take advantage of her at all, but he saved her again. Wouldn't it be too unreasonable for Zhu Huntang to still care about this? But he always felt shy and embarrassed, so Zhu Huntang kicked Lu Chang'an, turned around and ran away. Lu Chang'an was too lazy to pay attention to her. He only smelled the wind as she ran. There was a girl's breath in the wind, which seemed to be the smell of pink. Under the flying skirt, it was the paradise that Lieutenant Colonel Frank said. Zhu Huntang finally left. Lu Chang'an jumped down from the second floor with his mobile phone, came to the carriage, and took out the blue and green factory mobile phone. The pinnacle of 5,000 years of human civilization, mobile phone, in exchange for your coffin, I can just buy this one. You should know how precious it is. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 240. You cannot have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but you can't live without a mobile phone. As for those who need Wi-Fi and data traffic, they are all children, and adults never lack Wi-Fi and data traffic. It can be seen from this that the mobile phone is an important technological product. It spends the most time with people when they are alive, and the coffin is only used after death. So, which necessities are more important while alive, or after death? What is important about dispensable things? It can be burned to ashes. The urn is not a coffin, so a coffin is not necessary. Lu Chang'an seriously reasoned with Shang Guandandan. The king of Changji was 19 years old that year, riding a horse to Chang'an in the spring breeze. The young queen was 15 years old that year. All the beauty was nothing but the first sight in life. Don't you want to see how future generations will interpret the strange situation in Chang'an city? Don't you want to open your eyes and take a look at Vyang Palace again? Is your memory fuzzy? Or fragmented? Or is it as clear as yesterday? But now, after all, it is more than 2000 years later. Do you want to see those familiar names and familiar people, who vividly interpret what are your memories from back then? You only need a mobile phone, which can satisfy all your spiritual needs. You will always exist in the world, but things change and people change. 2000 years have passed, and the sun set on the river, the deceased is like a husband. At this moment, your spiritual dependence, comfort, and remembrance all need such a treasure to realize. For you, what is more important than a mobile phone? Lu Chang'an finished speaking and looked at the coffin quietly, waiting for Shang Guandandan's response. Still silence. Lu Chang'an nodded. It seemed that the plan to exchange the coffin with a mobile phone had failed. The girl's family had never used a mobile phone. Based on his description, she was not so easily moved. So Lu Chang'an didn't care whether Shang Guandandan could see or feel it, and started to demonstrate various functions of the mobile phone in the carriage. This is a social network app. What is the use of this thing? In your era, the so-called announcement to the world was actually very small in scope. It was normal for some edicts to take 3 to 5 months to reach remote areas. It's not unusual for 3 to 5 years. But with this social app, if you issue a decree, it will be known to the whole world in an instant. You see, this is your online identity. The name is your name, the note is your posthumous title, and the avatar is you. I took a selfie, and even helped you whiten your skin, so you look so pink now. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he took 2 more photos. You, give me the baby. You know it's a treasure, so how can I just give it to you? You said back then that you could give me anything as long as I stopped crying. You must keep your word. Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment. Is there such a thing? Even if this really happened, it was 2000 years ago. Does it still count? 2000 years is not a long time. It seems a bit inappropriate if things that happened 2000 years ago don't count. Shang Guandandan stopped talking, but Lu Chang'an felt as if the little girl was staring at him from behind, with tears in his eyes, and aggrieved. All right. It's not a good time to be impatient, not to mention that Lu Chang'an doesn't want to snatch her coffin and keep it for himself. He has no interest in possession, but is only interested in the secrets contained in it. Lu Chang'an placed the phone screen down on the coffin. Shang Guandandan didn't make any movement, and the phone didn't disappear instantly from the coffin. Lu Chang'an simply went to get the instructions. Do you want to use your mobile phone in the coffin? The signal is not good. Shang Guandandan still didn't respond to Lu Chang'an, and Lu Chang'an didn't say much, just stood next to the coffin and watched. Obviously he is a very patient person, but a little girl who hides in a coffin all day long seems to be very patient. It got dark soon, and Lu Chang'an didn't even eat dinner for the first time, so he stood in the carriage and looked at Shang Guandandan's coffin. Old man Qian came to ask Lu Chang'an to play mahjong, but no one was found. Old Mrs. Lu came to call Lu Chang'an to fight off the beard, but Lu Chang'an was still in the carriage. Zhou Dongdong ran down to feed the loaches and sat by the puddle for a long time. Someone else passed by and patted the carriage door. Soon after midnight, Lu Chang'an simply started to continue the class and talked about the contents of the encyclopedia. Lu Chang'an believed that the more she knew about the world, the stronger her desire to leave the coffin would be. Lu Chang'an didn't believe it. Since she asked for the mobile phone, this desire must be strong enough. Strong desire is difficult to control. The night passed, and Lu Chang'an didn't even take a sip of water. He talked all night. This was of course nothing to him. He was a very patient and energy-consuming person. No one had been able to consume him in many years. There are automatic light switches and door stoppers behind the refrigerator door. There is a magnetic sealing ring embedded in the inner wall of the refrigerator door. There is an oil chamber, a meat safe, a partition installation channel, a freezer compartment, a refrigerator compartment, a water dispenser, a handle. Baby is broken. Lu Chang'an was telling her about the composition of a modern refrigerator. Shang Guandandan, who had been silent since he put his mobile phone on the coffin, finally said 4 more words. Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment. Is his phone broken? Fortunately, the mobile phone I just bought is still under warranty and you can exchange it for another one. However, if you buy a fake one, the profiteers will definitely not recognize it and you will need to fight wits and courage. Lu Chang'an picked up the phone and pressed the power button casually. It showed that the battery was low. It was broken. It just ran out of power. Wait, this phone is fully charged by itself. If it had been on standby, it wouldn't have run out of power now. Lu Chang'an thought of this and glanced at the coffin doubtfully. Have you been using this phone? Shang Guandandan said nothing. Lu Chang'an pursed his lips, feeling a little frustrated. Could it be that he was really wasting his time? He had lectured all night, but she had been playing with her phone. Lu Chang'an somewhat understood how the teacher felt when he saw his classmates playing with mobile phones in high school. Lu Chang'an took the mobile phone and charged it with the anger of a teacher. After restarting the phone, he casually clicked on the starting point to read. App, I saw the reading record of Shading the Sky. She read novels all night. I kept seeing no power. He was giving a lecture, but she probably didn't listen at all. Lu Chang'an came to the carriage and looked at the coffin calmly. Why are you playing with your baby? Shang Guandandan said nothing. Lu Chang'an asked 3 times in a row, but got no response. You tell me how you use your phone and how you read novels, and I will help you fix the baby. Lu Chang'an continued to reason with her. Look, you originally said that I made that promise to you, and I didn't say anything about it. I told you I would give it to you, and now you broke it and asked me to fix it, but you still have this attitude. Isn't it appropriate? I'll tell you when you fix it, baby. Lu Chang'an felt happy. The little girl was so easy to fool. I haven't been feeling well these past 2 days. I'll have another outbreak tomorrow when I feel better. This time it will be bigger.